big question. It's about a lot of things. I think one of the way that we start the essay is we observe that any good leftist, any good egalitarian in this society, in the United States, and in many other racially divided societies, has to be concerned about racial equality. There's something really scandalous about the fact that just by virtue of your arbitrary assignment into a racial group, you live worse in so many different dimensions of life. That has to outrage us. The question for any egalitarian, then, of course, is how do we fight that? How do we change it? How do we close the racial gap between, in the essay, we talked specifically about white Americans and Black Americans, but the argument could be generalized. And when you do that, when you think about, okay, how should we close the racial gap, you have to think politically. You have to think strategically. What would it mean to close the racial gap? And one of the very, very obvious challenges for any American egalitarian who seeks to close the racial gap is that the ways in which we know how to transform the United States, transform capitalist societies in general, all depend on having either a majority of the population behind your policy proposal, behind your campaign, which you would do through democratic means, or a majority of the working class behind your policy campaign, which you might do through unions and disruptive campaigns. And the obvious problem, if that's the case, if that's how you're going to transform America, is that Black Americans and non-white Americans in general are a minority of both the population and the working class. And so you confront what we call just the fatal limit of demography in the United States. It's very, very difficult, impossible, really, to build a race-specific coalition to attack racial inequality. We then say, okay, well, if that's the case, is the situation hopeless? Is there nothing we can do? And we observe that no, that's not the case, precisely because African Americans are overrepresented amongst the poor and overrepresented in the working class. You can also attack racial inequality in the United States by attacking class inequality, by attacking income inequality. And unlike racial inequality, unlike race-based strategies, class-based strategies actually are viable because majorities of the population and majorities of the working class have an interest in closing the class gap. And so the class path, what we call the class path, becomes a viable path to racial liberation, racial equality in the United States in a way that the race-based path can never be. One thing that we can observe when we look at the United States is that African Americans are worse off than white Americans, not just in that they have on average less income, not just that they have less wealth, but also that they're stigmatized in our culture, that in our social life, in politics, they're much less likely to have power, et cetera. So there are a wide variety of domains of social life in which African Americans are worse off than white Americans. Now, one challenge when you then are trying to think of a program of racial equality is you have to think, okay, well, what kind of strategy could address simultaneously all of these different dimensions? And it seems like there's probably none. We'd have to prioritize. And so in thinking about which to prioritize, we want to think about what the relationship is between these different domains of inequality. And one of the things that Dave and I argue in the essay is that it seems reasonable to commit to what we call the materialist wager, which is the idea that economic inequalities, income and wealth inequalities principally, have a kind of asymmetric relationship between these other domains. Not to say that these other domains don't affect income and wealth inequality, but income and wealth inequality have an outsized effect in the other direction. And if that's true, then it is rational for egalitarians to focus on inequalities in income and wealth. I think of that point as just a basic point that most socialists probably already understand intuitively, but it's something that's worth stating explicitly. The reason that we focus on income and wealth is because these things have an outsized impact on how people fare in all domains of social life. It's not necessarily because we care more about income inequality than any other kind of inequality. It's because income inequality and wealth inequality are the key to transforming. In the essay, we only talk about income, but the same thing is true of wealth, is that within race, income inequality has become so significant, so large in the United States, that within, if you just look at Black America, so in the essay, we look at working age men who are Black. If you just look at them, income inequality amongst Black working age men in the United States is as unequal, roughly, as the country of Colombia. the Latin American country of Colombia. It's just the Gini coefficient is 0.5, for if that means anything to people. It's just a very, very unequal income distribution. And the white income distribution is similar. I can't remember exactly the number, but it's around that. And both are very close to the overall level of inequality. Now, what all of that implies, as we try to show in the piece, is that if you're a poor Black person, the gap between you and a poor white person is much, much smaller than the gap between you and a rich Black person. And you can think in a stylized way, you can think of race-based politics as trying to basically close the gap between you and white people. So take the poor Black person and make their life equivalent to a poor white person. And class-based politics is trying to close the gap between you and a rich Black person. And it turns out that in the United States today, the gap between you, as I was saying, you and a rich Black person is just much, much larger. Something like, depending on which points you pick, it's about 7 to 8 times larger, we show. So what that means is that class-based politics just stands to transform your life in a way that race-based politics can't. The gap between you and a poor white person is just not that large. So if you lived like them, your life wouldn't be all that different. Now, if you go and think about the interests of the rich Black person, they stand to benefit quite a bit from race-based politics because they live worse than the rich white person. The 85th percentile Black person lives worse than the 85th percentile white person. Whites are advantaged. But class-based politics actually works in the opposite direction because they live above the average. They live above the median. So any effort to bring them closer to the poor is going to be deleterious to their interests. And so you start to see that, in fact, there's a kind of class gradient in who is attracted to race-based politics and who's attracted to class-based politics, even within the Black community. Basically, class-based politics just does much more for the Black poor, while race-based politics does much more for the Black rich. Now, that's not to say that race-based politics wouldn't do anything for the poor Black person. It would move them to the position of the poor white person. But it is just interesting to note that it does the relative preferences are reversed in this case between poor and rich. And then I think, the natural question is, well, why does the left talk so much about race-based politics rather than class-based politics?
And I had brought this up before we started hearing this from the community about how you reference Donald Trump as a fascist versus Joe Biden as a friend or anything other than a fascist. So we have conservatives. About 30% of our audience is conservative, and they reach out to us like, we're in a space with leftists. We're conservatives, but we're in space with leftists. So we understand that Cornel West doesn't mean any harm by what he's saying. But they're saying we want Cornel West to reach the ears of Trump country that's on the fence. The ones that if you just tweak a couple of words, it opens up their ears to where they can hear your message. And they're telling us, Pasta is one that you've interviewed with at the Convo Coach. This is something he's brought up to us both, me and Nick separately. Like, right. This is another, like, he has got to either stop calling Trump a fascist and then referring to, Donald Trump, Joe Biden as a friend, or call both of them, human beings, give them both respect as human beings that are both on a path of destruction, maybe. But to humanize both, like you're humanizing Joe Biden, or to dehumanize both like we do when we say fascist. That is just to be consistent so that people can hear your message. Because just like if you were to run for the Democratic Party, that immediately turns off people, a certain segment of the population. That don't matter what you're going to say, they're not going to get you because you have D. You solved that problem by going green. And the pushback that we're receiving, this is not a direct pushback from RBN. This is what our community is asking us to ask you. What say you to those people that is that is vigorously saying, please get Dr. Cornel West to stop doing that. How do you respond to those people?
I appreciate that question. That's one of the many reasons why I like to be in dialogue with you all, because I come to learn and I come to listen. The first thing I would say is that I've always referred to both Biden and Trump as brothers, because I start from a Christian sensibility. I think I've been consistent in that regard, going back to the video, but even many, many years before. Now, I've never used friend because that's different. But when from a certain Christian perspective, a brother and sister is a human being made in the image and likeness of God, who has the capacity to change. So that a reference to their brotherhood and sisterhood is simply their capacity to go another way, in the language of my own Black Baptist tradition. See? So but when I then say, okay, I say brother Trump, and you can imagine all kind of folks think I lost my mind.
Yeah.
I don't say things for good popularity. I say things based on what I believe. But then I do call him a fascist. I do call him a fascist, because a fascist is someone who does not believe in the democratic transfer of power. A fascist is someone who defends the power of big military, defends the power of big money, scapegoats the most vulnerable, and tries to convince the citizenry that they are powerless and hopeless without him as the Pied Piper. He's the only one who comes to the rescue. He's the only one who is the deliverer. Now, every country has its own historically specific form of fascism. Hitler in Germany and Mussolini in Italy, we can go on and on. Salazar in Portugal and what have you. In the United States, the closest thing we've had is a Trump at the presidential level who can satisfy all of those characteristics. Now, when you look at United States as a settler colonial experiment for indigenous peoples, America has always been fascist. Yes. Because it's a war against them for 400 years. Yep. And their land is the precondition of American democracy. The stolen land, the violation of their precious people. For those of us who are descendants of the dignified Africans who were enslaved, America has also looked fascist. 189 years on the U.S. Constitution of slavery, another 100 years of neo-slavery, and then the new Jim Crow and the mass incarceration and the hood and the decrepit schools and so forth, right? So that the vantage points is very important here. So when I talk about Biden, I usually talk about Biden as a milquetoast neoliberal. Neoliberalism is a class war against poor and working people that disproportionately impacts brown and Black and indigenous people. But I talk about his imperial policy, be it in the Middle East, Palestinians. For Palestinians, any U.S. administration looks fascist.
Welcome to a very, very special edition of RBN Live, where I believe Sabby's not here yet, but I believe she will be coming soon, and we're going to have the completed team here for this discussion. But let me start it out the right way. I'm one of your hosts. I'm CJ. I'll pass it to Nick, and then Nick, you can pass it to everybody else. I'm one of your hosts. I'm CJ. What's up, Nick?
What's poppin', fam? It's been a while since we had a proper RBN Live. Our sister Sabby will be joining in a little bit. So, what do you guys want to talk about? What do you guys want to chat about today?
Well, before we get, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, JP.
Well, hello everybody. Good to see you. This is going to be a interesting topic, and I have my thoughts, so we'll get into it.
Right on. Oh, and Rome, you up, sir? What's up, Rome? Oh, is his volume, his thing down?
Hold on. My shit breaking up. I think that's me.
Okay.
I'm probably about to join through my phone.
We can get to Rome here soon. We get to CJ
Yeah.
while Rome gets fixed.
Yeah. Rome wants to switch to his phone. That's perfectly fine. Let's just let's set the right tone here. So this, if you're here for a Vanguard style sort of, death match, that's not what this is. We are RBN. We're a step above. We're not here for bickering back and forth. We're here to move, to progress, to move this forward. So this discussion is about moving things forward. So if you came here, let's see what side, it's not any at all about sides. We're here to speak truth about the conversation that Jimmy Dore and Cornel West had. So I just want to make sure we understand the lens. And I do have a brief presentation to do before we get to the Jimmy Dore video. But just before I get to that, I do want to just kind of check in with everybody, not necessarily telling us what what your thoughts is on the conversation, but just how are you feeling? Describe your current mood. And I'll start with JB and then we'll go to Nick.
Yeah, I just wanted to reflect that this is a teachable moment for all present. I think that's something that needs to be honed in on, is that there are some of us, and including people like myself and many other people, that we may have blind spots that we may miss out on, that we may need to check ourselves on. And so I think this is a very teachable moment. This is, and maybe I'm speaking a little too forward here, but I think something like this needed to happen so that we can actually address this as the left, so that we can actually push for something better, because we're all suffering. And I think the passion comes from us all suffering. So I just wanted to say that. But how I'm feeling is there's some disappointment. And the disappointment is on both sides. But at the same time, I also see points on both sides. But I think that there needs to be a reckoning of what type of, how we view the intersections that we need to view. But yeah, I'm just gonna leave it at that. I don't want to get too deep into it.
Yeah, we're just talking feelings.
Yeah. So,
how you feeling, Nick?
So you guys know I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of left infighting. I'm talking about the real left infighting, not like whenever we take down the Vanguard, TYT, Kristen Cow, that's us exposing neoliberals, people who infiltrate our ranks. What you saw last night between Dr. Cornel West and Jimmy Dore is what we need to see all the goddamn time. What you guys saw with me and Pasta. Me and Pasta was on, and we essentially had the same debate that Dr. Cornel West and Jimmy did regarding white supremacy and catering the feelings of white people in our movement. What language should we use? I'm not for protecting the feelings of anyone. I'm here to speak truth. In that regard, that's true regarding Bernie fans. How many Bernie fans I pissed off? How many Marianne Williamson fans I pissed off? I am one of the people where I would tell the truth. I don't give a fuck what you feel about it. Period. At all. So I had that debate with Pasta, and I feel like we need to change this whack bitch ass culture on the left where people are afraid to have arguments and disagreements. I'm like, me and Pasta, we had a scuffle on Twitter. Let's do this. Pasta, all right, let's do this. We had a conversation. It was very productive. This left where people are like hiding from each other and shit is bitch made shit. You know what I mean? People who like drop a diss track on RBN, but people were like, why are you not debating me? You guys know what we talking about. Why you not debating me? You gotta drop the diss track. Oh, that shit is bitch made, fam. I'm not for that. So you guys saw Dr. Cornel West and Jimmy Dore got into a big argument. Like, bro, Dr. Cornel West was bringing Gangster out. He was getting upset. Jimmy was getting upset. We need more of that, fam. Fuck this civility politics nonsense. And I got words. And I'm gonna tell you guys exactly how I feel on every single issue. and I don't want to spoil too much of it because we'll get to the video.
Yeah.
And we can get to a lot of those disagreements because I'm one of the people that I don't like false peace. You know what I mean? Where this thing like, well, let's not just talk about the elephant in the room. Let's talk about this. Let's figure this out as a movement and get it done. That is what revolutionary discipline look like, fam. Right? If people start canceling each other over this, that's not discipline, fam. Anyway,
Rome, you ready to come in? Let us know if you're ready to come in.
I wouldn't say a lot of my opinions on the interview to when we get to them, but that's my general feel.
Yeah,
we need to, in order to have the smart left that we trying to cultivate or being a really intelligent, disciplined movement, we're going to butt heads. We're gonna have these clash and these debates. Lenin was a famous, notorious debate me, bro. What did not talk about is the large split in the civil rights movement between the more radical wing versus the more conservative black people in the civil rights movement that was like, oh, come on, guys, calm down. Meanwhile, Malcolm X was like, fuck that. I'm tired of you motherfuckers holding us back.
I was just putting you in, my bad.
You guys know what I mean? So I'm all for it, my position. And this is why I'm glad everyone are being here because everyone has their own opinion and perspective. Looking forward to hearing all of them. But that's why I'm all for, fam. I'm all for discourse. You know what I mean? But welcome back, Rome.
Right. So Rome, we're going around the table and we're not getting into the discussion yet. We're just, how do you feel? Again, we're not getting into the discussion yet. Rome, go ahead.
I feel like I don't know. I don't know if I really want to say how I really feel about all the shenanigans going on and the biasness and whatnot, but it's just something toxic in the air. That's how I feel.
For sure. And I saw the message with Sabby. She's going to be a few minutes late, but she's going to be arriving very soon. And the reason I was just sort of hypersensitive about not starting yet, because I do want to set the mood with the presentation. The mood that people have on Twitter is not the mood I want to have here.
Yeah.
That's not the mood I want to have. I don't want the Twitter mood, because if you look at the comments already, I don't know if you saw this before we even went live. It was 50 people already here commenting already. So I don't want that energy to roll over into the discussion. So this is why I want to make sure we get to my little presentation. I got 2 videos, one 7 minutes, one 9 minutes, and you can stop and start because there's going to be points that I know all of us going to be, wow, that's a good point. Let me interject here. So I know that's going to happen, especially with this first video that I'm going to play here. In this first video, and this is all around the topic. So it's not like this is off topic, because one of the, and several of the videos I put up went viral. And I think I was one of the first people that had some of the clips out, even though it was filmed on my phone. It went viral. And the one that went the most viral, when it had over 11,000 likes and I think 30,000 views or something like that. More than that, actually. That was yesterday. Is the one that was about race and class. And it feels like that's the thing that is the most touchy. It feels like that's the thing that gets people the most emotional. And it feels like that's the thing, that's the reason why that's the thing I want to address in this first sort of section of this. So let's listen. This guy is a Harvard researcher, and he did some research. And they wrote a book, or they're calling it a pamphlet or something like that, an essay, because it's not necessarily a book, but it's an essay on race and class. And I believe it's called something like How to Achieve Racial, forgive me for the lack of a better word, I'm going to use liberation here because I forget the word, racial liberation through class struggle. So if your goal is to achieve some of those racial sort of liberating things, is the way to get that through class struggle or racial struggle. We see what racial struggle has gotten us, and it feels like we've reaching a ceiling to me. But let's listen to what this guy said, and I must say he is a Marxist. So, and that is the perspective of the, that we mostly come from. So that's the reason why I wanted to play this first.
Big question. It's about a lot of things. I think one of the way that we start the essay is we observe that any good leftist, any good egalitarian in this society, in the United States, and in many other racially divided societies, has to be concerned about racial equality. There's something really scandalous about the fact that just by virtue of your arbitrary assignment into a racial group, you live worse in so many different dimensions of life. That has to outrage us. The question for any egalitarian, then, of course, is how do we fight that? How do we change it? How do we close the racial gap between, in the essay, we talk specifically about white Americans and Black Americans, but the argument could be generalized. And when you do that, when you think about, okay, how should we close the racial gap, you have to think politically. You have to think strategically. What would it mean to close the racial gap? And one of the very, very obvious challenges for any American egalitarian who seeks to close the racial gap is that the ways in which we know how to transform the United States, transform capitalist societies in general, all depend on having either a majority of the population behind your policy proposal, behind your campaign, which you would do through democratic means, or a majority of the working class behind your policy campaign, which you might do through unions and disruptive campaigns. And the obvious problem, if that's the case, if that's how you're going to transform America, is that Black Americans and non-white Americans in general are a minority of both the population and the working class. And so you confront what we call just the fatal limit of demography in the United States.
So let's talk about that. The fatal limit of demography. Do you think, and I'm going to ask all of you, do you think we've reached that? Have trying to access more freedoms through convincing people based on the argument based off of some race issue, have we reached the limit of the effectiveness that can gain with the civil rights movement? Have we seen something more? In other words, if we could gain more through that way, why haven't we gained more since the signing of the civil rights legislation? So all of that wrapped into one. I'll start with Nick first. Go ahead, Nick.
I'll pass it to Rome, but to make
go whoever. Simple. I thought you were just.
No, I'll say just to make it real simple, because I know Rome wanted to chime in. Neoliberalism. I wrote my first Substack article I wrote about this, on how our Black community, Black elders, led by sellouts like John Lewis, the Black Congressional Caucus, the new leaders, Hakeem Jeffries, they took our old revolutionary mindset, meaning the Black Panthers, which is a Marxist-Leninist organization, right? Why you guys wonder why RBN don't shy away from our socialist and Marxist and communist labels, despite the fact that they may help hurt us on YouTube? Because that comes from our Black revolutionary background. MLK was a socialist. Malcolm X said, if you're a capitalist, you're a fucking rat. You're a worm. You're a parasite. Once again, Black Panther is a Marxist-Leninist organization. Marx developed his theory behind capitalism based on looking how European societies and cultures relied on slave labor. And despite the massive wealth that they got by stealing the wealth of Africans and South Americans and many other indigenous people, despite this massive wealth, they had a giant amount of people in poverty. So Marx led a critique of the Western societies based on this principle. Then he looked at indigenous cultures. He looked at how Africans lived. He looked at how indigenous Hawaiians live, how people in Central America live. These people have way less resources than European countries, but they're happier. They raising families. They take care of each other. They living longer. He's like, how is that possible? And that would led to the theory of Marxism and socialism that we follow, that MLK, Malcolm X, and Fred Hampton pick up on. You want to know what they are now? They're neoliberal capitalists. And people wondering why the Black community is in the state that they're in right now. We have a ton of Black millionaires running around, but the racial income inequality is worse than it's ever been. Worse than it's ever been. It's worse than it was at the height of the civil rights movement, fam. You guys know that? So my question is that me playing identity politics by bringing up this class issue? The class issue that we are in a worse economic position than we was in the 60s. Is that identity politics? Fam, is it? It's not. That's a class issue. And there's civil asset forfeiture. There's the amount of wealth that is stolen by our state. I was a victim of the bankruptcy bill. I would charge a higher interest rate on my car loan, proven by a lawsuit, fam. And that was only because Joe Biden and Democratic Party loosened regulations and allowed the banks to discriminate on black people and made it so that they pay a higher cost of living than white people. So meanwhile, black neoliberals are teaming up with these people, and they wonder why, oh my God, why are racial struggling failing? One word, neoliberalism. I went long. I apologize. I passed it wrong. I went way longer than I planned, but Ron, go ahead. Because there's a lot to break down there. I'll share my thoughts later.
And you're right, because it seemed like we did reach a ceiling here. And, education is always key. And this is something that they have been holding back from all of our communities, whether they be black or white. Whether you have good education or bad education, you still have been, programmed to be the person that you are today. You have been programmed to not, rebel against the system, to work in the factories, to do whatever they needed you to do, to not revolt. In order not to revolt, keep you distracted and keep you dumb. This is why we have reached the ceiling that our heads are touching right now when it comes to black and whites actually coming together to get something done when it comes to class issues. Because once again, we can't leave out, how black people go through things, how black people lives are treated in America. If we are talking on class, because if you don't, if you guys, there's a lot of white leftists that say ACAB. Why are all cops bad? Why? Right? Because of the things that they do to these communities, and you cannot avoid it. Right? So it is a class issue, and the education people have been deprived from. This is one of the reasons why we're not in the space that we need to be right now.
So before I pass back to Pound, this is my first ever Substack article to answer this question, right? Embrace MLK, reject Barack Obama. Why leftists need to challenge the scourge of black neoliberalism. Black boomers have led our generation off a cliff by embracing neoliberalism. Voting for Hakeem Jeffries in New York. Shame on you. Supporting Hakeem Jeffries. Make sure you gotta check this out.
Let's pause, Nick, to introduce Sabby here, because we want to get her feeling. What's up, Sab? So everybody checked in. We're not gotten into the discussion yet, but we just want to know, how's everybody feeling? So how are you feeling about, what is your mood about everything that has happened? Like, where are you emotionally, or your mood like?
Just disappointed. Because I feel like it's very clear to me that even after 2 Bernie Sanders campaigns in a row, on the left, we still don't understand, or not all of us, but it seems like there's a general consensus where a lot of people don't understand that for those of us that are black, especially working class black people, there is no, we only have class and we're not going to focus on race. We have to deal with both. And I think what some people may not understand is that, and I have a video clip I can show to CJ. Some of the racist policies and laws that were implemented in this country to prevent black people from getting ahead or to stop black people ultimately ended up hurting poor and working class white people as well. And I'll show you guys the video whenever you're ready, because I want to show you an example of this. And this is why we can't just say, no, we're just going to focus on class, not talk about race.
Yeah, let's hold the video, because there is a spot where, there is a spot in this after we get to this, where we can present that. Because anyway, let me play the video and you'll get what I mean. Because I don't want to give it away what's said. I didn't get a chance to. I don't think all of you saw this video and some of the points he's going to make. And I think there will be a more natural placement for that video. You'll see, Sabi. And so let's listen to this here.
Make sure. Let me put it back on the screen. Here we go.
Racial
inequality.
I got it.
Oh, my bad. I didn't even look. My bad, everybody. All right, so I'll rewind it back just a little bit because I had played it already.
America is that Black Americans and non-white Americans in general are a minority of both the population and the working class. And so you confront what we call just the fatal limit of demography in the United States. It's very, very difficult, impossible, really, to build a race-specific.
The audio went out.
CJ?
The audio went out.
CJ.
Not sure what happened.
Yeah, CJ muted for some reason.
I think CJ froze for a second.
Everybody internet messing up. You're gonna have to back up.
Yeah, CJ, mute your mic if you can.
Can you hear us?
They after us, man. They don't want us talking.
CJ, can you hear us?
He probably don't know. Yeah, let me take this down. I'll take this down. Oh, we got call CJ. CJ, can you hear us?
CJ.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, we can't hear the video. The video is silent.
I can hear the video. Oh, sorry. Let me see what the sound is wrong right here.
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, we can't hear the video. The video is silent. I can hear the video.
Somebody turn the TV down.
Let me see what the sound is wrong right here. Okay, so my bad if you can hear it. So let me know if you can hear it now. You can hear that?
No,
there's something going on, man.
Yeah, let me refresh the video. So, but it doesn't mess up the presentation because it doesn't matter which order I do. So, the other video I wanted to cover before we get to the Jimmy Dore video. It's another short video. This one is a 9-minute video. And the reason I want to show this is because this alliance is the one that a lot of people point to, and that is the Young Patriots and Black Panther Party alliance that was made a few decades ago in Chicago. So let me show you that video, and we can discuss, because when we're talking about actually organizing with those people, this is what it looks like. And so I think that's why it's good to show this video. This is what it actually looks like. And then we'll get to the Jimmy Dore video. All right, so I think it's set to go. Let me make sure it's already rewind all the way. Yeah,
the video's still buffering.
All right. Let me rewind it. Let me refresh it here. All right, there we go. All right, so now let me make it bigger. Fuck. I swear something's going on here.
I'm born in the community, so the community knows.
All right, so my bad, everybody. Okay, so now we should be able to watch it. All right, so let me know when you wanted to stop it, but this is just a good sort of teachable moment, sort of a historical moment to look at, to look back to for looking forward as far as a strategic way to move forward. So let's.
Tonight from another part of town, but he's fighting for some of the same causes we're fighting for, and start the meeting off. So I'm going to introduce.
Can I make this bigger? All right, there we go. All right.
You start out going into the community so the community know, man, what you're doing. Because see, if the pig off you, Roger, and you just going to funeral, man, you've been.
You know what? Just let's get to the Jimmy video. I don't know what's going on with this.
Do you want me to?
Yeah.
Can you send it to me and I can?
Oh yeah, let me. I'll send it to you, but I'll pass it to Nick. Nick was gonna chime in.
I don't know. Maybe I don't know if time Savvy's here. I want to make sure we get to the Jimmy segment while we still got Savvy.
Yeah, let's bring up the Jimmy video, and if somebody else can do that, because I don't know what's going on with my connection.
Just send me the link.
Yeah,
JB, let JB host it.
Yeah.
I'll read super chats while you guys doing that. I'll read super chats.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you for the $5, Mosaic. One more point. White people are hurt more by the system than rich black people. Class more than race. Even if you disagree, though, I support you guys always. This is why I don't understand the point of the oppression Olympics there. If we all fight for class issues, we're fighting for the same thing, right? But anyway, I got a lot of super chats to get to, so let's move on. We're gonna discuss this in detail today. Thanks for the $5, Mosaic. Even on crime and police, the solutions help. Yeah, this is the point. Mosaic gets the point. The solutions help all people, white, black, etc. You specify race, though, it causes division. Why is that? So the question we got to ask is, why is that?
Because the lack of
we
education.
talk about black issues and someone is turned off, the question is why? Why are you turned off? Because if you turned off when we talk about something very significant, like the state of black wealth, you are going to get in the way of the revolution and the movement later on, correct? So we might as well iron the issues out right now. Like why push something down the road that's going to be a problem later, right? So this is what I don't understand, and this is the
this is a reason why left movements lack black people and black leadership, because of being ignored, being put on the back burner. Why do you think these black people move far away from you leftists, you online leftists? You don't see a lot of black people saying that they are communists or whatever the fuck, because they have been ignored and pushed to the back, not only by Republicans, Democrats, now socialists and communists and leftists. So when do we get a chance to speak on a podium? When do we get a chance to speak on it? Because if we're going to talk about all issues, then we're going to talk about all issues, because all of them affect us way harder than it would ever affect a white family.
And these are some of the same issues that people had with Bernie Sanders' campaign, where it felt like when it came to the discussion of reparations, and Bernie Sanders said that he does not support reparations. Even Nina Turner tried to tell him back then, like, no, you need to have that as part of your platform. He said multiple times in interviews he did not agree with it. This is also why some people in the black community wouldn't want to fuck with Bernie Sanders. Because the thing is, like, this idea that if we give everybody these universal policies, it lifts all boats, right? But I think there's a difference between looking at equality and equity. And that's, even for me with the Bernie campaign, Bernie Sanders missed that part. Just because you're lifting all boats, that still doesn't mean that some people are still going to be at the bottom. And that's the thing. You lift all boats with those universal policies, but black people would still be at the bottom. And that's what people don't understand. If you're trying to close the racial wealth gap, you're not going to close it just by universal policies.
Mm-hmm. And one thing I don't understand with the objection that race is separated from class. Because that's our argument, is that race and class are connected. I did many streams with Dr. Peter Otesh and many of the amazing thinkers at Bedbeat Media and many internationalists, where we agree on ending war. We agree on ending Wall Street greed. We agree on increasing the wages of our household, giving each other health care. So we agree on those class issues, right? So let's get back to his comment. Imagine how silly you are if you like, yeah, the Ukraine war is a big issue. We're on the cusp of World War III. Let's start an anti-war movement. Let's work together to end this. And then you hear a black leftist say something about white supremacy, and now you're like, oh, never mind. I don't want to. Fuck it. I don't care no more. I don't want to organize with them. to end war. That's what you guys are saying.
Because what do a hit dog do? If you punch the shit out of a dog, what would it?
You guys don't want to work. Oh, hold on, Rome. You guys are saying that you guys don't want to work with people on ending war, on increasing our material interests, just because they mention critical race theory. That is what you guys are okaying. Because when you guys say, well, you can't talk about race issues because it will turn off some white people, you guys are okaying the white guy leaving the movement because of nonsense. Why is that the red line for you guys? You guys see, why are you guys splitting and separating class solidarity? Because we talk about white supremacy and we talk about how the society is not as good as you think it is. You hurt our feelings, so we don't want to work with you no more. That's bullshit. That is deeply unserious, childish shit. At the end of the day, and I have no tolerance for that. Oh, Nick, you hurt my feelings. My great dad, he didn't benefit from white supremacy. Our generational wealth had nothing to do with slavery. Because you hurt my feelings, I don't care about the Ukraine war no more. That is what you guys sound like to me. Our great dad, he didn't benefit. That's what you guys sound like to me. Oh, I don't want to work with you because they take nothing to do with slavery. That's ridiculous. I don't care about the Ukraine war no more. Maybe this one got echo like crazy. CJ, someone.
That was my mic was up too high. I turned it down a little bit. And I sort of figured out what was going on with my internet, so it should be a little bit better. It's not ever going to be great because that's not what capitalism does.
No, I don't.
Yeah, that's not what capitalism. They don't deliver a good product. They just raise prices and rebrand the same old bullshit. So it should be better now with the connection. And
I have the Jimmy Dore video. I don't know if you have.
Yeah, let's get to the Jimmy Dore video. So, but I do need to say this because I wasn't able to give my presentation because the presentation was going to be in place of me saying this. I'm not here for bickering shit. I'm just not. I'm not here for he said, she said. I'm taking this side. I'm just saying I'm exiting if that's where the chat and all of this shit is going to go to. That's not what I'm here for. This is a prime opportunity for us to push forward. So that's what I wanted to come on live at this time to do. That's what I'm here to do. Is to move this conversation forward and progress. Now, and this is not to any of the members. I'm speaking to the audience because there's a lot of nonsense in the chat. Like, we're here for serious shit. If you're here just to, I got in a good one-liner about Cornel. I got in a good one-liner about Jimmy Dore. That's not what this. We're not that. Take that to Vanguard. Take that somewhere else. Yeah. That's not here. We are using this opportunity to turn this into a constructive matter. We all were saying this in the background. JB, make sure it's a teachable moment. Before this was going to be everybody when he just thought it was going to be giving me pointers. Make sure it's a teachable moment. This is about teaching. That's what this is about. Not about some sort of taking sides. We are all in the same community from Jimmy Dore to Cornel West. This is about resolving issues and moving forward stronger. That's what this is about. So I felt like the presentation was going to say that. And since I was, not able to do that, I just wanted to lay that out there. And I'll pass to whoever has the video and we can get started.
Yeah, I can play the video. I don't think there should be any issues. So, CJ, let me know if you have any.
It's crazy people. It's crazy. It must be, how we get crazy people, like just not regular people. They're just here, the drive-by people. Like if you really go through this chat shit, like this shit is some of this shit that these people are saying is ridiculous. But anyway, go ahead. Getting triggered by the chat. I'm getting triggered by the chat.
I only seen the clip that you shared on Twitter, but I think it'd be good to go through this. Just let me know how you guys are doing on time. It's great to have the fam together, right? So we gotta cherish these moments. Anyway, let's continue. I'll just start from the beginning. Why not? There's a lot to discuss. I didn't see the full interview. Thank God CJ put clips on Twitter. So I just saw a few that you put on there. So this is the first time I'm seeing it. So should be very interesting.
welcome back to the show, Dr. Cornel West.
Oh, thank you, my dear brother. I think about you. I think of George Carlin. You know, the Union Seminary is right across the street from George Carlin Place.
Oh, really? No kidding.
What a grand genius. He grew up on 121st and Broadway next to Corpus Christi Church, and they got a beautiful sign saluting him. And beside Richard Pryor, he's got to be one of the greatest comic geniuses of the last 50 years, my brother.
Well, I certainly wish he was still alive right now, because I know he would see through all the propaganda that we've been living through, at least since 2015. But I want to just, before we start, I want to get this out there, because some people misunderstood my coverage of your appearance with Anderson Cooper, and they took it as an attack on you, when I was merely trying to help you get the message right about the Ukraine war. Because as a radical, part of your job is to educate people on what's actually happening. And you have to be crystal clear in explaining it to people, especially about what's happening in Ukraine. So people took that as me trying to attack you, when I was doing it more as a coach, trying to help you and get it right. And that's what I'm going to be doing in this interview also, because I was thrilled to hear that you're running third party. You got more courage than I do to do it. You're a better man than me. And so I appreciate you doing it, because you're getting the message out there about the Ukraine war, about the two-party duopoly. This is really important. And
legal chill in the beginning.
So if I just want to tell people, so if it seems like I'm being critical of Cornel West from here going forward to the election, what it is going to be is me trying to help make his message even better than it is, because I think it's really important that his message get out there. That's what this is about.
I think that's important.
So anyway, I just wanted to clear that up.
Oh, sure. I think the important thing always is, brother, that, you know, we the anthem of Black folk is lift every voice, not lift every echo. You got a voice. I've got a voice. Our voices overlap. Our voices can have tension. Our voices can conflict. We can learn from one another. We proceed. We've got a similar critique of the predatory capitalist society. We've got similar critique of a whole host of issues, and certain things we disagree with. Well, that's understandable too. I'm learning from you, you learning from me. But it's the respect more than anything else that's crucial here. And I think I appreciate you starting off with that kind of a reflection, my brother. Very much so.
So now people make a big deal out of the fact that you endorsed Joe Biden in 2020. And now you're running against him. And the reason what was the reason you endorsed him in 2020, and what has changed since?
Yeah, one, I was thoroughly convinced that we needed an anti-fascist coalition, and that included the kind of milquetoast warmongering neoliberals like Biden. And now it's fairly clear Biden had 4 years. He had 4 years to steal the thunder from any kind of Trump challenge. 4 years to try to speak to the needs of poor and working people, 4 years to try to cut back on the military adventurism. That's been characteristic of his whole career. And it's clear to me now that if the only opposition to the escalating neo-fascism in the country is going to be Biden, or Biden-like, then the fascism's coming anyway. We're going to have alternative vision, alternative institutions, alternative infrastructures. It has an alternative passion. And so if all we can do is produce democratic administrations that are caretakers, postponers of the Trump or Trump-like candidates, then the fascism's coming anyway. The only way you really get at the roots of fascism is to break from the corporate duopoly, to show how the two-party system is an impediment for the unleashing not only of American democracy, but also trying to dismantle the empire in terms of the 800 military units around the world, and the military budget taking 57 cents for every dollar. And so in that sense, there's been a shift. There's no doubt about that. Now keep in mind, you know, I supported Ralph Nader and Jill Stein. And in between, I had early supported Bill Bradley, and I had supported John Kerry as a kind of anti-right-wing coalition too. So that my jazz-like activities certainly can be characterized at times with a certain kind of inconsistency, but it's the timing of it.
Now, I want you guys to reflect on that.
I was just going to pause there. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I want you guys to reflect on the answer. I'll pass to Pound because CJ, I know you want to chime in. But that says a lot that Dr. Cornel West admit that he was inconsistent, because That is why I had a lot of respect for Dr. Cornel West, because I knew he was a native voter. He voted for Joe Stein. He was early Obama supporter in 2008, but a lot of people fell for Obama, and then he immediately became an Obama critic, and he supported the Joe Stein administration. That is why it was deeply disappointing to see that Dr. Cornel West then played the lesser two evils game, because he should have known better. But at the same time, it's good that he reflect from that, and your answer should be straight up, I was wrong, and I learned better. Now, where I am confused is how do you take that answer, which was good, explaining how Biden is going to lead to fascism, to you apologizing and pretending that Biden is not on the same level of Trump later, because those two views should coincide. But I was save that thought for a little bit later in the interview. I'll pass to the panel. CJ, anyone else who want to chime in before we continue?
Yeah, when he's saying this is something maybe I don't know of, and I always reach out to Nick when I say, hey, this is what really liberals are saying, or even conservative, if any of you know. Is this something, is Cornel West's credibility in question? Because this is something I've never heard of because of what he said in 2020. Is that because we've said and we've acknowledged, yeah, he supported it. And we've said things like he supported it, but of course he didn't go out and campaign for it.
Remember, CJ, my first interview, I don't mean to interrupt you, I'll pass right back to you. But the first interview I did with Dr. Cornel West is when I addressed that. Mm-hmm. That's why the frustration is kicking in. Because we had the lesser two conversations. How many times now? If you guys look at the very first time we ever had Dr. Cornel West on, we talked about him endorsing Biden. He said that was a mistake. And then I clicked, I was like, thank God, because this is a guy I had a respect for because he was a Joe Stein voter. Because he didn't vote. But go ahead, Sabby, go ahead.
But I think we should be fair across the board, because RFK also supported Joe Biden.
Absolutely.
RFK has said multiple times in interviews that he's friends with Joe Biden and his family. Absolutely. And he has also said he's not going to run a mean-spirited campaign against Joe Biden. And he's running in the Democratic Party. So I think the thing is just we have to make sure that we're being fair. So the people who are, because some people are criticizing Cornel West for endorsing Joe Biden in 2020, some of those same people, not all of them, but some of those same people are supporting RFK Jr., who also, supported supported Joe Biden. So what's
a Zionist?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Those are people giving away. They're giving away, Sabby. Those are people who are giving away that policy is not their core concern. You get what I'm saying? That's the same thing as saying I have an issue. I want Medicare for all, but I voted for Joe Biden. It makes no sense. So do you really want Medicare for all? Is that really your priority? You get what I'm saying? So if you don't have the same critique or pushback that you have for Cornel West, that you don't have that for RFK, that's telling in itself, in my opinion. And whoever else wanted to chime in.
Yeah. And remember, in our debate with my debate with Pasta, he got upset because I called RFK Jr. supporter cultist. But if you're an RFK Jr. supporter and you criticize Dr. Cornel West for being too weak on Democrats, you're a cultist, because RFK Jr. said in a recent interview, we literally clipped it, he said he's a Democrat to his core. You guys know when RFK Jr. is going to stop fighting? He's going to stop fighting around Super Tuesday.
Yeah.
Dr. Cornel West is in the general election. Repeat after me, fam. The general election. There's one of them is going to quit early, and we know which one it is. And he's bullshitting you right now, but he's going to endorse Biden. But go ahead, Ron. I'm sorry I had to cut you off earlier. Go ahead, Ron.
I remember your first interview with Dr. Cornel West, and back then I was I was shaky on him too. I still am today because of his inconsistency. Because he was one of the reasons why I actually woke up to what Barack Obama was doing. And he was calling him out, calling him all type of names you would never think Cornel would come out of Cornel West's mouth, right? And it really turned me off with the Biden endorsement. Yes, it turns me off. It turned me the hell off. But I'm glad to see that he's man enough to own up to his failures and try to make it better. Try to do something better for the people. So instead of, hey, I know I fucked up with Joe Biden, but here's a better candidate. Like, no, if you want the job done, you do it what? You do it your damn self, right? So he see that you can't get anywhere with the Democrats. So to start your own party, and that's do it through a third party, and that's what I respect more than anything. You know, you have the balls to actually go against the grain this time. You know, and knowing that the warmongers and war criminals that's that probably on his head right now. You know, it shows it shows strength. It really does, especially in these days.
All right, let's continue for a second, Tom, and then after the next segment, we pause it out. We let play a full segment play, and then we get our thoughts afterwards.
Each moment has its own context.
So now, our friend Nick Cruz says that many climate activists have no idea.
Who's that guy?
idea how much they destroyed all their credibility by endorsing and supporting Joe Biden, the Nord Stream pipeline bomber, and the largest eco-terrorist in modern human history for president. Why should anyone take climate or environmental issues seriously when you obviously do not? Now, what do you say back to that?
That guy makes some great points. Just saying, that guy makes some fantastic points. And this is why we've been wanting Dr. Cornel West to escalate his rhetoric against the Democratic Party. Unlike Trump supporters and duopolists, because we are post-duopolists, there are duopolists who believe this moron Trump is an anti-establishment fighter, even though he hired John Bolton, Mike Pompeo, and others. We look at him as a clown. But we call him out, but we say that Dr. Cornel West should use that same anger for him. That's what he's bringing up here. So let me let it continue.
That kind of critique that by endorsing him, you lose your credibility.
Well, it becomes, I mean, I think, you know, I've been on my dear brother's show a number of times, and I think there's always a certain force in the argument of trying to be consistently third party across the board, having no relation whatsoever to the bourgeois politicians. I think there's force to that. But I think the credibility that one has really is holistic. It's wholesale rather than just retail. And the credibility that you have in regard to being consistently against war, consistently against capital, consistently against white supremacy, even if it has different kind of stances from one election to the next. That would be one of the ways in which I would try to respond to that. That would be the beginning of a response to that.
Okay. Here's another.
Again, a critique I have. He about to show no one on tweets. But I don't know why all that was necessary, because in that answer, you can say, yeah, Joe Biden is an eco-terrorist and no one on the left should ever endorse him. So I don't know what the fuck he's going on about. You're running against Joe Biden, Dr. West. But sorry, go ahead.
Let me interject here. I could have interjected this part later, but it's a good moment with your comment there. And that is, I believe what we're seeing or what we are identifying in Cornel West is that, remember, he made a calculation that fascism is coming and we need to form and I need to team with these people over here I wouldn't normally team with to fight fascism. Just because he believes there needs to be a different strategy to fight that same fight doesn't mean he doesn't still believe the calculation, the formula that brought him to his conclusion in 2020. So he still thinks, and you hear it in what he's saying and the distinctions that he's making, he still thinks that Trump is the bigger threat. He still thinks that, in what he's saying. Go ahead, Sabby, you were going to chime in.
I think that instead of, because this is something I know we all had this conversation with Dr. West. I told him too, like when I interviewed him on my show, I explained to him how both of them are fascists. And I gave different examples about like how Trump was more overt, but Biden was more covert. But Biden did some of these same things via legislation and also some of the people that he supported or he chose to support politically, right? So that is a point where I think we disagree with Cornel West as to if they're really that much different. But I think the focus should be corruption. Yeah. At the end of the day, Joe Biden and Donald Trump are both corrupt. And I think that's where the conversation, the discussion really needs to go, instead of people arguing over this person's more fascist than this one and that person's more fascist than that one. We need to call out the corruption, and both of them are corrupt. And I wish that's the direction that it would go to.
And I just want to say, you know, a lot of these people, from Dr. Cornel West, you know, unfortunately, to a lot of Joe Biden and Democrat base, they do not want to take responsibility for putting the fascist in office. So, you know, if he was to say, "Oh well, he's a fascist," then it reflects back to you. You know, it reflects back to you and your endorsement. So a lot of people try to, you know, bend their ways out of these corners and bend their ways out of these fights in order not to take responsibility for what they have done. But I feel like I think he feel like, you know, him running is trying to at least right the wrongs that he have done from endorsing Joe Biden and whatnot. But a lot of people do try to avoid responsibility.
That's a good point.
People. I'll let the video continue after my very short point, but people got to remember that Dr. Cornel West is running in the general election, and I wish he also remembered that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because
let me say one thing.
And the reason I say that is because if you're running against Joe Biden, every question you should turn into a Joe Biden attack. That's why I'm like, I don't know why he even answered the question this way. No matter what they ask you. So when he reads my tweet where I talk about how Joe Biden's a Nord Stream pipeline bomber, why aren't you expanding on that? You know what I mean?
All of them.
Go ahead, Sabby.
All the candidates are doing this. Have you guys noticed that? Like RFK is doing this, Marianne Williamson is doing this. Like, you really have to go hard at Joe Biden, especially right now, because Joe Biden is barely standing.
Literally, huh, Sabby? Literally.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So I'm gonna let it play a little bit. JB, do you want to
one more comment? I'm sorry, JB.
JB and then CJ.
Go ahead.
JB and then CJ, and then we let it play for a bit after you guys comment.
All right. So one of the things that I think that needs to be honed in on, and I think it is good to think about, is some people are thinking they're in their minds, Cornel West is running a Democratic primary. He's not. That means, like Nick said, very well, is that he's going all the way to the general. I think what I am disappointed in is that Cornel West doesn't see the covert versus overt fascism that Sabby pointed out, and within Biden and Trump. But in reality, they are operating within a fascist system that a lot of people don't talk about. And the fascist system scapegoats and keeps us divided. You want to talk about fascism? Let's talk about the carceral system that disproportionately affects Black people. Let's talk about the media system that will disproportionately look at Black people as troublesome, right? So the system itself is fascist, and then the agents of the system are just people like Donald Trump and Joe Biden. And so when we look at it from that lens, then it becomes easier to say, well, yeah, they're both on the same side. Because what is fascism? Fascism is governments and corporations working hand in hand to keep a small group of people in power while also demonizing and scapegoating marginalized groups in order to keep the working class divided. And when you have that, you have Joe Biden doing that, you have Donald Trump doing that, you have MSNBC doing that, you have Fox News doing that, you have New York Times, Washington Post, OAN, all of them are doing that, which means that they are all complicit within the fascist elements of a system. And fascism really is just the love child of the white supremacist and racist system that has been birthed. Because remember, fascism came forth out of the idea of how this country treated indigenous Americans and Black people. That's where they got their ideas from. And so once we come to terms with they're agents of this system and that they're both within participants of it, then that, I think, is the way to talk about it. But unfortunately, I don't think that Dr. West really sees it as that yet. I'm hoping that he can warm up to it, but I don't know.
CJ, do you want to comment one more time?
Yeah. So listen, because what he's about to start listing what's fascism or not. Listen to what Cornel West lists as when he says, "Oh, Trump is doing this, this, and this." Listen to what he's saying, and you tell me if that's not January 6th, Russiagate, some of the stuff that's what I'm saying. He is still in the mindset of 2020, even though his strategy is different. His calculation that Trump is worse is still the same. And then another point, if you have fascist elements, because he likes to say that, yeah, he has fascist elements. Isn't that what makes you a fascist? That you have elements? So why not just call him fascist?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Little element, but not fascist. That's a great point. Now we can continue the video.
Yeah, let's do the video.
This is Jimmy showing Dr. West another one of my tweets. So this is Jimmy essentially being like, "Yo, I got my homies at RBN. Why don't you sound like them? Why don't you sound like them people at RBN I've been talked to?" Because that's the question. Because why is he not using our language? But anyway, that's essentially what he's confronting him with. Why don't you sound like a real opposition to the Democratic Party? Let's continue.
Tweet from Nick. He says the same professional managerial class gaslighters want us to take it easy on Bernie. They use civility politics as a weapon so they can comfortably sell out. The working class must reject this and start holding these people accountable for selling us out. So Bernie has sold us out, and I don't need you to call him a sellout or anything. That's fine. But I do want to see, this is your response, because Bernie was asked about your campaign, and he said it shouldn't happen, and he's against it, and he's endorsing Biden, and of course that is just garbage. And so this is how you responded.
And you even in love, people have deep disagreements about these things. But I think again, he's fearful of the neo-fascism of Trump.
So when my what I would say to you here, and this is a big point, and I'm trying to impress upon you going forward, that when you do that, you sound a little bit like Joe Biden, and what you're doing is you're giving a pass to Bernie Sanders and anybody else for voting lesser of two evils. So you're endorsing the Democrats' message in their campaign. And so now people can dismiss your candidacy and say, well, we got to worry about the neo-fascism of Trump, as if Joe Biden isn't worse, which he is. He's a bigger fascist. And he just crushed a union strike on the railroad, which is the definition of fascism. He's now trying to saber rattle with two nuclear powers, nuclear war, nothing more important than that. And what he's doing in Ukraine, you know exactly what he's doing, right? So he's the worst warmonger in the world. 300,000 Ukrainians have already been slaughtered in this proxy war that was provoked by NATO, which you know. So when do you think that when you say that when you call Donald Trump a neo-fascist and you don't say that about Joe Biden, what do you say when I tell you that you're undercutting your own campaign and you are propping up the Democratic message, which is that they are the lesser of two evil and you have to vote for Joe Biden so we don't have fascism? By the way, we already have fascism. As we all know, the fascism is the joining of...
The thing is, Jimmy is making arguments to Dr. Cornel West that we all made to him. That's why there's a lot of frustration that at least I have. Because a lot of the train wreck that you guys are going to see later in this interview could have been avoided if only Dr. West listened to us. To be frank, I don't understand why you come out here 3 times. We explained this concept to you 3 times, and then you got to go on Jimmy and have him explain that to you in front of 15,000 people. Wouldn't it have been better for us? Go ahead, CJ. Go ahead.
No, what I was gonna say. Try explaining this to somebody who believes in Russiagate. You're gonna have to explain it to him 15 million times. I'm trying to tell everybody he is not in the mindset that we are about Trump and Biden.
Yeah.
He still has the calculation that brought him to the decision to back Biden in 2020. He just decided in 2024 the strategy of getting rid of the scary Trump is not backing Biden, it's running third party. The calculation is still the same. That's why it's reflective in how he speaks, because he still thinks that. That's what I think. But go ahead, Sabby. I think somebody was going to chime in.
I think it's very important. Anybody challenging Joe Biden at this point in time needs to call out every bad policy decision making position that Joe Biden has had. I think all these things need to be called out, like the mass incarceration, the crime bill, like not even just when Joe Biden was a senator, but even the things that happened under Joe Biden's presidency. You got to call out him supporting and approving the Willow Act and claiming to really be this climate, protector or whatever. You got to call out Joe Biden supporting these corporations, Joe Biden being corporate. You got to call out everything that Joe Biden has done that is corrupt in this point in time. And this is something where I think all of them, Cornel, Marianne, and RFK Jr., I think all of them are slipping on this point because there's so many things that you can list that Joe Biden has done wrong just in reference to policy. I'm not even talking about the things Joe Biden said in the past about his kids or other people's kids. I'm talking about all the things that he has done in reference to legislation that has affected people in this country. So I think all of them, they need to call that out.
Yeah, I honestly think that as far as from the policy standpoint, you need to go scorched earth. Because the thing is that any type of softness on either Biden or Trump, it can just make people look at you sideways. So as far as what Joe Biden has done and what Trump has done, it's like you need to paint them both as what they really are, war criminals. And I know some people who are Trump supporters will be like, well, Trump didn't start a war. Yeah, but he continued a bunch of them. So the thing is that you have, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to add something about the war part too, JB, and I'll pass it back to you about Trump didn't start a war. Yes, Trump did not start a new war, but I also need people to stop saying that Trump did not give weapons to Ukraine. That is an absolute lie. Donald Trump also gave weapons to Ukraine, and people need to stop telling that lie. No, it hasn't been billions and billions and billions like Joe Biden has been doing, but he was sending them weapons as well. That's why I'm telling you guys, they're both corrupt.
Also to the proxy war in to the war in Yemen, he sold weapons to Saudi Arabia. So if we're going to talk about war crimes, you need to say both are guilty of war crimes, and then include people like George W. Bush and Barack Obama in that equation too. Because the thing is that they are all guilty. And so if you're going to position yourself as the alternative, you have to position yourself as the alternative to the entire party, the entire Democrat and entire Republican Party, because they're complicit in war. And that's the thing that I think he has to bring home.
Yeah, you guys also got to remember, before I continue the clip, Donald Trump also drone strike more people than Barack Obama, the drone strike king. He also expanded on sanctions and tried to overthrow Venezuela and even tried to start an invasion. The only reason why Trump didn't invade Venezuela is because John Bolton and Mike Pompeo stopped him. So John Bolton was like, nigga, Trump, you're being too crazy on this one. How can anyone ever take that guy as face value as anti-war? And John Bolton ever outflanked you on any war position. But anyway, let's continue, because I don't want to belabor the point.
Corporate and government to screw the worker. And that's exactly what Joe Biden, the Democrats, and Pete Buttigieg did. And so they will keep doing it, and they're not stopping it. And they're also for censorship, which is the hallmark of fascism. So this idea that Donald Trump is more of a fascist than Joe Biden undermines your own campaign. There's no doubt about that. And so I would encourage you to stop doing that. What do you say back?
Hey, no, we deeply disagree on that.
What?
I don't think, and this is why I disagree with Nick too.
What?
That and I appreciate your advice here, cast in a respectful way, but we do, and I disagree with Brother Nick on this too.
What?
That I just got back from Mississippi. You know that. You know what the Jenkins and Parkins, the two brothers brutalized by the police. They're at the church, the Klan still running wild, not just with votes, but terrorizing black folk. The Goon Squad finally got caught by the two lawyers, Brother Malik and Brother Trent. Now, what does that mean? That means that when you talk about fascism, you're talking not just about the rule of big money, not just the rule of big military, not just the rule of corporate power, so that it's oligarchic in essence, but you're also talking about dictatorial rule, no elections, the elimination of dissident voices, and then the scapegoating of the most vulnerable.
Can you pause there?
So, Dr. West.
So I mentioned this.
I have to chime in because he mentioned I'm wrong. I'm wrong. So that what you just laid out is exactly what the Democratic Party has done. You want to know who's going after black socialists, the Uhuru movement, Brother Amali? The Biden administration. Why are you soft on fascism against black people that being waged on the Democratic Party? So how am I wrong, Dr. West?
Nick, once again, it reflects back on him and all the things that he have done to put these people in power. And he cannot, you do not want to put yourselves in crosshairs in front of bullets that's going back and forth from one battlefield to the next. You can't stand in the middle. So, and not only this, sadly, his base is or was Democratic. A lot of his followers are Democratic voters and whatnot, and that is his base. That is his base of people. As far as the people who's gonna, watch him and read his books and shit like that. And that's why a lot of the people who love Dr. Cornel West hates that he's running third party right now because his base is Democrats, and he know not to cross certain lines because that will really hurt his campaign with him trying to at least grab the voters that he could and go third party.
But Bernie, I'm sorry, but Rome. I'm sorry, Rome. I'm sorry, but Rome. Bernie Sanders crossed all kinds of lines. Mm-hmm. Bernie Sanders out there smearing Dr. West, AOC, and them all crossed all kind of lines to get in order and get in line and push back against any type of third party movement on the outside. There has to be a hardcore break away from the Bernie Sanders campaign, whatever's left of that campaign group. There has to be a hardcore break away from that for anyone that is running third party or independent, because those people have crossed the line multiple times to the point where they are still willing to tell people to vote and simp for Jim Crow Joe, knowing damn well Joe Biden doesn't approve any of those policies that they're running on. So if they can turn and flip and turn on everybody else that was a part of that Bernie campaign that's willing to do a third party movement, we have to flip on them. We really have to bring the ruckus against them. And so this is something I would encourage Dr. West. You got to call Bernie Sanders out. And I know later on in that Breakfast Club interview, he did say Bernie was lying about Joe Biden's economy doing well. But you got to go scorch earth, even at your friend Bernie Sanders, because Bernie will do it to you. I don't trust Bernie Sanders as far as you can throw him. I'm going to tell you right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And you guys saw anyway, go ahead, CJ. We can let
I was gonna say you can do your comment because I was gonna ask you to rewind it 20 seconds and then I would
actually I got a lot to say, but I'll let the video continue.
If you can rewind it like 20 seconds and then I'll give my comment.
But once again, this interview would have went better if you would have listened to me. I'm just saying that.
The police, they're at the church, the Klan still running wild. Not just with votes, but terrorizing black folk. The Goon Squad finally got caught by the two lawyers, Brother Malik and Brother Trent. Now, what does that mean? That means that when you talk about fascism, you're talking not just about the rule of big money, not just the rule of big military, not just the rule of corporate power, so that it's oligarchic in essence, but you're also talking about dictatorial rule. No.
So you hear what he just mentioned, all tangible things that Joe Biden is doing. He lists that to say, we're not only talking about this, the things that Joe Biden are doing, but he labels those neoliberal. Now, if you play the second half, and then I'll give my second part of the comment, I'm breaking it down like this. If you play the second part now.
No elections, the elimination of dissident voices, and then the scapegoating of the most vulnerable.
Right there,
immigrants.
Isn't that what mainstream liberal media is saying? All about Donald Trump. You see what I said? He still has the calculation of what brought him to 2020 to support Joe Biden. He still has that calculation. The stuff he listed, the military industrial complex and other stuff he listed that applies to Joe Biden. He only sees that as neoliberalism. Not that it's like easier or better, but he sees that as neoliberalism. Maybe there are fascistic elements, which to me should make you give you the ability to say he's a fascist, but listen to the things he's saying. To him, is almost like it's not more important. Maybe it is more important, but it seems like he's making it seem like it's more important not changing power. That's not an actual thing that Trump has done. That's something that they're just talking about. You see how he's letting tangible things that Joe Biden does, he's letting that be outdone by ideas that the liberal media has put out there. Him threatening not to leave power. Him just threatening. You see, that's fascism. Has he done it? Has he done it? He hasn't done it. This is just a pumped up threat. Yeah. So you have a list of pumped up threats that he's making versus tangible things that Joe Biden is doing.
I mean,
this is the thing that I was trying to point out. Go ahead, Rom. Go ahead.
They don't like. They are fascists through and through. They are telling you guys, even this election, they are tripling down. Fuck double. They are telling you, we are straight up fascists. We are so much fascist. We believe in fascism so much, we're not even going to run our fucking primaries. We're not even going to play that whole fucking game anymore. We're going to show you guys who has the power and who's going to fucking keep it. Who's the fucking boss? That's what the Democratic Party is doing right now. And Dr. Cornel West, he has flaws. Yes. This is why it is good to have somebody to your left to you to actually push these ideas to you and teach you. Listen, I know he's a smart man, but he still have to listen and learn. He still have a lot to learn throughout his years that he's going to be here, and it's a lot that he needs to learn, especially when it comes to class, especially when it comes to poor Black folk. Let's keep it real. Dr. Cornel West is not a poor man. He's not speaking from, a poor Black man train of thought, right? Because you only hear this type of shit from some rich Black dude. You only hear this type of shit from a rich Black dude. But I wish he needs people to the left of him to educate him on these things and how to really strategize on getting the working class to back you, to back a third party.
Anyway, let's continue. We still got quite a bit to get through, so I'm gonna let it play for quite a bit, and then we can comment because I want to hear what Dr. West says, and we dive in after.
It could be Black people, Jews, Arabs, and so forth. See, with under Biden, what you have is a fascist dimension domestically, especially against Black folk and others. You and I, the very fact that we're having this dialogue without being eliminated overnight, a fascist regime could completely call into question with the use of arbitrary power. That's what happens in the mass incarceration regime vis-a-vis poor Black people and others. Right. So that is the fascist dimension. Similarly, so in terms of militarism abroad, so that there's fascist elements, my brother, there's fascist dimensions. But with Trump, when you have calling into question transfer of power and so forth, that is not the same thing. And so that doesn't undermine my campaign at all. The campaign's about truth.
100% undermines your campaign. 100%. You're shooting yourself right in the dick before you even start. So that's just bad. You're getting bad advice. I don't know who's advising you, but they're giving you horrible advice.
January. I'm a free man. I'm a free man, brother.
So January.
But I want to hear your argument. I want to hear your argument as to how Biden is more fascist than Trump.
Why do you need to hear that? Are you really going to make a fool out of yourself in front of 15,000 people when we told you this 3+ times? Literally 3 different members. You had me, you had CJ, you had Sabby. We told you this. Were you daydreaming when we was telling you this? But instead of listening to what we said, you're going to make an ass of yourself instead in front of 15,000 people.
You can literally look at the
I remember when Sabby interviewed you, and she gave her a brilliant reason why Joe Biden is faster than Trump. When I talked to you, when I told you why Joe Biden is just as bad as Trump, your response was, you guys bring up great arguments. I'm going to pray on that. Apparently you did not. That's why I feel insulted. Because we telling you this stuff, it's like one ear at the other. It's extremely frustrating. Because now we got to watch you. We got to watch this extremely awkward, tense moment that probably lost you a ton of support, to be honest. because you just didn't listen to us for whatever reason.
All you have to do is say both men are bad.
Jesus.
Just run to the left. And it's so crazy how low the bar actually is. That you can just be somewhat better. You are better. You don't have a political report card like Joe Biden or Donald Trump. You've been into politics, but you've never been into power. Okay. You don't have a record of bombing people and shit like that, but you do have a record of endorsing people who do those things. All you have to do is say, fuck both of these niggas. Both of these motherfuckers are white supremacists. Yes. Both of these motherfuckers are fascists. We're not going to compare apples to oranges or green oranges to red orange, red apples to green apples. These are both apples, you know? So he just needs to say, fuck all of them, like y'all said, scorched earth. Run to the left of both of them, and you will have the working class. You will have the people ear at least. At least you know that you have the balls to call out both parties when it actually comes down to the nitty gritty, because we need a leader who's gonna be able to stand up on his feet and die on his feet when the time comes for it.
I was just gonna say, this is the piece that Bernie Sanders was missing. This is the piece that his campaigns were missing, because even at the end, Bernie said, well, we got to vote for Joe. We got to vote for Hillary so that we don't get Donald Trump. Even Bernie Sanders wasn't willing to point out the similarities between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. And I think it just, because again, this is something I've recently asked Bree on Bad Faith. I said, what is the end game? Is the end game to try to reform a party or work outside the system? Or is the end game to tell people in the end, when you don't get the nomination because the DNC is going to give it to you, is the end game to tell people just support the Democratic Party because they're not Donald Trump? Because if the end game is to tell people just support the Democratic Party because they're not Donald Trump, we're not going to get any significant changes in this country. We'll just keep doing the same thing over and over. So you really got to, if we're in the ring, if Cornel West is in the ring, he got to knock Joe Biden the fuck out. Like, seriously, you can't tiptoe around it. You can't be nice about it. You have to take Joe Biden down. And I felt like Bernie wasn't really willing to do this. A number of times when Bernie Sanders could have called out Joe Biden on the debate stage, even that one-on-one debate that they had, Bernie still, even then, was soft on Joe Biden. He could have went way harder at Joe Biden. So again, it's like, we have to knock Joe Biden out, period.
And to add to Savvy's point, Dr. Cornel West can really go for the juggler, because as a black man going to prisons to teach black men in prison, I think that Dr. Cornel West has a prime opportunity, because he literally can go from the left and say, look, this is all the things that Joe Biden did, and Joe Biden is no different than Trump. And here's the thing. Yes, some people who are on the more Trump voter side are going to get pissed off. But the thing is that once you but once you show the similarities that Trump is just like Joe Biden, then it's going to make even people on the right think, well, whoa, why is Trump acting like Biden? Because the thing is that the point is to turn off right-wingers to Trump and to turn off liberals to Biden. And so that they can both see, look, the math ain't mathing when it comes to supporting either one of them. And another point that I also want to bring out is the point is we want to make sure that they realize you're workers, and that's it, and that's all. And both of these guys both support the people at the top. You can say, well, Donald Trump didn't support war. Yeah, but at the same time, who gave tax cuts to all the billionaires, right? And then who is continuing those tax cuts? There's really no distance. There's no gulf between them. Right. And so I think that's the thing that Dr. West needs to hone in on.
Yeah, I know there's a lot more to say, but let's allow the clip to play, and then we can chime in some more with some more thoughts.
Trump
just lay it out right quick.
Well, I'll tell you right now, the reason why the deep state Russiagated Trump was because he wouldn't bomb enough to calm them down. So he wouldn't do enough bombing. The reason they impeached him because he wouldn't ship arms to Nazis in Ukraine, and he was against that. So that's
so just are you defending Trump as somehow being a person who is? I mean, I don't understand. I don't understand your argument at this point, though, man. What are we talking about?
Okay, so there's.
So what I think Dr. West should have said there, instead of saying, "Are you defending Trump?" He should have pushed back on the rhetoric that Donald Trump didn't send weapons to people. He did send weapons to Ukraine. I can continue to say that over and over again so people understand that. You guys can Google this for yourself. Donald Trump still sent weapons to Ukraine. And I think that's what Cornel West should have pushed back on instead of, "Are you defending Trump?" or that type of thing.
Yeah, great point, Savvy. I'll go back a little bit. I won't. This exchange is gonna be tough to get through, fam. Let's just change. Let's finish this exchange and let's just do our thoughts afterwards because it's gonna be wow. That response, right? Wow. So I didn't see the whole thing, but that's wow.
Was against that. So that's
so just are you defending Trump as somehow being a person who is? I mean, I don't understand. I don't understand your argument at this point, though, man. What are we talking about?
Okay, so there's.
I want to understand what the content of your argument is, because one can, in fact, bring critique to bear on the system as a whole with the two corporate wings. But somehow, what do you say to trans and gays and lesbian brothers and sisters in terms of their rights?
So that's again. Joe Biden is responsible for the mass incarceration, not Donald Trump. Who is more responsible for black and brown people being locked up and America being the largest penal colony in the world? Is it Donald Trump or would it be Joe Biden? By the way, this conversation is a loser for your campaign.
Donald Trump
sitting here trying to make the argument.
It could be a loser for you too, though.
Trying to make the argument.
You trying to make the case that somehow the Democrats are more fascist than the Republicans. The fascism cuts across the board.
But that's not how you say it, though. You say it's only Donald Trump. You don't say it cuts across the board. You call Joe Biden milquetoast, and you call Donald Trump a fascist. So you're not saying Joe Biden is a fascist, really?
I said there's fascist dimensions to the Biden project. You're absolutely right.
It's like you're campaigning for Joe Biden almost when you're doing this. That's what it sounds like.
That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
But that's what I'm not saying you are doing that. I'm saying that's what it sounds like.
What it sounds like to you. That's what it sounds like to you. And you got a right to be wrong. You got a right to be right. It sounds like to you.
Now, there's a lot to break down there. So I'll be real quick and I'll pass the pen. There's a lot to say. But I'm gonna say it like this. Dr. West, Howie Hawkins, or anyone else, if I truly believed that Donald Trump was more fascist than Joe Biden, I would vote for Joe Biden. You guys, you know what I mean? I would never do that because I generally do not believe that. I legitimately believe that Joe Biden is the most efficient fascist in government. He got things done that Donald Trump couldn't do. Like he's funding ICE $6 billion more than Donald Trump, right? So if I generally believed that Donald Trump was this unique threat that was more fascist than Joe Biden, I would just be a Democrat. I'm not, because that's ridiculous, right? So when you even let that hint out, even if you're not campaigning for Biden, that is the conclusion that some people will reach. Yeah, man, I like Dr. Cornel West. I like everything you just said. But yeah, you did make a good point about how Donald Trump is more fascist than Biden. So unfortunately, I got to vote for Joe Biden now, right? So that's the issue. And that's the same thing I told you on our show.
Also, Nick, I just want to add, like, the focus here of them going back and forth and talking about who's worse, Trump or Biden, to me, it's just like you're running outside the two-party system. So I don't even understand why they're comparing Trump and Biden. Does that make sense? It's like
it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant to the whole thing. When the whole show should have been about policy, how do he plan on getting these things done? You talking about ending NATO? You're talking about reparations. These are some huge things to touch on, and to go back and forth about, you know what I'm saying, who's bad and who's worse, and all of it is irrelevant because we need to crush capitalism at the end of the fucking day. We're gonna need a third, fourth, fifth party at the end of the day, you know. But all of this shit, I feel personally, is irrelevant because of the times that we're living in, because of the minds that we need to capture in these moments. And talking about Trump versus Biden, who gives a fuck? Nobody really cares about these people. They are just highlighted because of the media. But the majority of the country don't vote. 70% of Democrats don't want Joe Biden. Nobody really like, come on, man. The majority of this country just don't give a fuck about it. You think I want to wake up and talk about some Trump versus Biden bullshit? No. That shit is irrelevant. It's irrelevant because we need to crush capitalism, which is going to put both of them out of power. Whether you like or hate them, either or, more or less.
Right.
So
the whole lesser of two evils thing. It just, to me, I'm just like, why is there so much focus? What, we're like 13 minutes into this interview. Why is there so much focus on who's worse or who's better, Trump or Biden, when the focus should be about the campaign at hand and the policies that are part of the campaign? And I feel like that piece was lost from the interview because there was so much back and forth about who's worse, Biden or Trump.
Yeah. I honestly wouldn't
JB.
even
After
ask
JB, we can continue the video after JB chimes in. Go ahead, JB.
Yeah, I wouldn't even ask that question about Biden or Trump. I would have had this conversation over the phone, honestly, because the thing is that if you're trying to highlight Dr. Cornel West's campaign, it's to highlight the policy positions that he has and the prescription for the American people so that we can go, you know what, this is a guy that's better. Because once you highlight the policy positions, then look, who was soft on Bernie Sanders as far as his policy positions? People who voted for Trump actually like Bernie Sanders. And so if you have somebody who has policies that are even better than what Bernie would do, then it's great to highlight those policies and then have this conversation in the background behind closed doors or over the phone and say, listen, Doc, I understand that you want to talk about this, but I think, and let you guys have that argument in the background, but highlight the policies in the foreground so that it actually shows people, okay, this is what he stands on. And then maybe just then, Dr. West will take that to heart, hopefully, because if it's coming from enough people, and then he changes and he readjusts on that. But I think this is a conversation that should have been in the background.
Yeah, so let's play some more of the clip. Man, there's so much to discuss here, but I'll let it play for a quiet.
Oh, and you called Donald Trump a fascist. So you're not saying Joe Biden is a fascist, really?
I said there's fascist dimensions to the Biden project. You're absolutely right.
It's like you're campaigning for Joe Biden almost when you're doing this. That's what it sounds like.
That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
But that's what I'm not saying you are doing that. I'm saying that's what it sounds like.
What it sounds like to you. That's what it sounds like to you. And you got a right to be wrong. You got a right to be right. It sounds like to you. But it doesn't sound like that to a whole host of others at all, though, brother. Not at all.
All right. Again, I'm saying this out of love for you because I do have deep love for you. I have deep respect for you. And we agree on almost everything except the message of your campaign, right? That's the only thing. I would hope it would become even more focal. Let me just put it this way.
But are you suggesting that the message should be that Biden is a greater fascist than Trump? Is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying that you should talk about fascism or any of that stuff. I think you should.
No, fascism is very real.
I think
you don't think fascism is real in the country?
We're living in it. We're living in fascism.
But I'm talking about escalating in terms of intensity.
It has since Biden became president. It certainly has escalated in intensity. They've censored everybody. They've crushed unions. They've started another war, and now they're saber rattling with.
I think look at Cornel West's face. And after what he just said and Joe Biden and Jimmy's response, this is maybe the most recognizable point where you can see in his face, he literally thinks Trump is worse. He believes what most of mainstream media is saying about Trump. Cornel West believes that. He's in spaces, I would say 80% of the spaces he's in have people who are still supporting because that's his class supports them. His class that are left, just think about that. People of his class that are on the left are supporting Democrats. So he's picking up on their narrative. And because he just said, because he said something, and then he's like escalating. That's all liberal cable news talk. Don't you think it's escalating? Who's escalating? Who's saying it's escalating? Liberal media is saying the right wing is what's escalating.
Yeah.
So we have to have a realization that where we are in the understanding of Trump and Biden, Cornel West is not there. So maybe the question should be, instead of saying called Biden a neo-fascist, why don't you just stop calling Trump a neo-fascist? Because you can use other names besides that. Maybe that's the way to kind of solve this. Go ahead, Nick. You were going to chime in.
And once again, this is the problem why, and this is what make Dr. West look bad, and I hope he reconsider his messaging, because we are not telling him to lie, Dr. West. I'm not telling you to lie to people. We broke down why Biden's worse than Trump. Savvy broke down to you why Biden's worse than Trump. CJ did the same. Now Jimmy's doing it again. And it would be different if you took each point one by one to debunk it, but that's not what you're doing. You're just repeating faith-based liberal dogma. Like, you're not dismantling. It'd be one thing if I list all the reasons why Biden is worse than Trump or just as bad as Trump, and then you just dismantle me and Jimmy. That is not what you're doing. You're just saying, oh, what you're saying is ridiculous. The same thing that like a liberal was saying in response to what we're saying. It'd be different. Anyway, I'll let you continue, but it'd be different if you just
Ajamu said this too. Remember in our interview, Nick, he said, yeah, Ajamu tells me this same thing. So Ajamu, people in his circle of networks that's advising him, tells him this exact same thing. Not necessarily, that go easy on Trump, but that, what are you talking about? Joe Biden's a fascist too.
Yeah.
He says this to him, but go ahead with the video.
Anyway, I'll let video go.
Escalating in terms of intensity.
It has since Biden became president. It certainly has escalated in intensity. They've censored everybody. They've crushed unions. They've started another war, and now they're saber rattling with 2 nuclear powers. I don't know how I don't know how worse it can get. And by the way, he still hasn't let people out of prison. He still hasn't given student loan. He's still denying us health care. He's an enemy of the worker and a tool of military industrial complex in Wall Street. There's no bigger fascist in the country than Joe Biden. The reason why black and brown people are locked up again isn't because of Trump. It's because of brother Biden. And Joe Biden is proud of that. He brags about that. He brags about the crime bill, and he will never apologize for it. So I'm just letting you know that I really want your campaign to pick up traction. This is the opposite way to do it. Who's ever advising you sounds like an infiltrator.
But why you keep saying advise me? I'm thinking for myself, brother. I'm a
okay. I don't mean to insult you. That's not
just a question of advising.
Okay.
I don't know who's advising you. You thinking for yourself. You're a free man too, aren't you?
You're right. You're right. Okay. I was trying to put it in a nice way.
I was use that kind of language, my brother. You want to be respectful.
I'm trying to be respectful. That's what was that.
I think you should listen to the advice of John McBrock of Cornell. I'm sorry. If you're not being advised, you need to listen to the advice of John McBrock. The movement doesn't need ego. Now, I made arguments and we had discussions about the benefits of a leader, a movement with a leader, or a leaderless movement. One of the cons of having a movement based around a leader is that if the leader have a bad idea, the entire ship is going down.
Yeah.
That's why people are upset, Dr. Cornel West, because if you're the leader of this movement and you're saying that Biden is better than Trump, the entire ship is going to go down. If in a leaderless movement, you'll be listening to our advice. You'll be seeking counsel instead of making this about ego, to be honest with you.
And I wanted to say, with Dr. West saying that, man, this dude, I don't know. I'll save him, man, because I don't got. It's just
we continue in Rome. You can chime in. You can chime in after we continue some more if you want to chime in after.
Let's play like 3 minutes straight. Let's see if we can play.
Let's play a bit. Yeah, absolutely.
Let's play 3 minutes straight. Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Good.
Okay. I know it look like hard sometimes, but I appreciate it. But we just have disagreements on these things.
Again,
if I undermine the campaign for you, then you're free to have your own view and vision.
Okay.
And people are free to listen to you and be persuaded or not. And
Okay.
I've got mine. I'm listening for your insight. Absolutely right. No doubt about that.
So let me just say this. So the point of running a third party campaign is to offer an alternative to the two major parties, to bring together disaffected members of those parties, along with independents and others who feel alienated from the political system as it exists. And the best way to do this is by running on economic issues that unite us, but which neither major party is willing to address because they're both beholden to the same powerful corporate interests. The Democratic Party long ago abandoned the working class in favor of beating the drum on cultural issues, and now that's all the Democrats have to run on. So if voters are looking for a party running on trans rights and calling Donald Trump and his supporters white supremacists, they can already vote for Democrats. The role of a third party is to focus not on the identity politics that divide us, but on core economic issues that unite us along class lines, like Christian Smalls did at Staten Island. Do you think he led with LGBTQ trans rights and white supremacy, or do you think he organized along class lines? That's what we have to do.
Yeah, there's a lot to say.
We have to.
I might need to go smoke a joint. I might need to go hit my joint.
Hold on. So we have to reach out to Jimmy, or maybe he says it more in the interview. Because to be frank with you, I haven't even watched this entire interview. I maybe watched the first half of it. So unless he clarifies later in the this is where we have to ask Jimmy: are you talking about a person who's running for office, and let's say the person is running on an economic campaign? You're telling me in an interview he can't talk about other stuff that he believes in, like if he believes in reparation? Is that what Jimmy's saying? I personally don't think that's what Jimmy's saying. I think he's saying as a campaign strategy, it shouldn't be here's my 10-point plan, defund the police. You know what I mean? The 10-point plan should all be centered around economic issues is what he's saying. And of course, the people will understand that you have other ideas in other areas. But the strategy of the campaign is these economic demands right here. This is the strategy of the campaign. Now, if I'm in an interview and you ask me about reparations, yeah, I'm for reparations. Are you for trans rights? Yeah, I'm for trans rights. But is that your campaign strategy is what I think Jimmy is alluding to, because it is absolutely ridiculous for anyone, including Jimmy, to think that a person who's running for office can't talk about other issues that they believe in outside of their campaign platform. You get what I'm saying? That would be just outside of the bounds of reality, in my opinion. So that's sort of the framing I was looking at this, is that of course Jimmy can't not be thinking it this ridiculous way. But go ahead, Nick or JB.
I'll play the clip. I want to hear. Let's get some more context, and then we get everyone back in here.
I
have some words, but I want the video to play first before I chime in. This is one of the few parts I did see, so I'll let it finish. Now chime in a little bit.
That's along class lines, like Christian Smalls did at Staten Island. Do you think he led with LGBTQ trans rights and white supremacy, or do you think he organized along class lines? That's what we have to do. You have to organize, meet people where they are. So what is your plan to organize along class lines, or are you going to keep talking about white supremacy and all those identity politics, which are there, not from the ground up, from the top down, to make sure we stay divided? What is your plan to organize along class lines?
See, where I disagree with the question from Jimmy is the premise, because I wouldn't even classify Dr. Cornel West as one of these people that just dive into liberal identity politics. So the question framing is kind of off, and that's why Dr. Cornel West kind of get offended later, because Dr. Cornel West is talking about working class issues. He's talking about ending the war. He's against the war in Ukraine, brother. Jimmy, he's against the war in Ukraine. He's been speaking out against Cop City. So he is talking about class issues. He's not one of these liberals that lead with identity politics issues. So that's why Dr. Cornel West, you see, is going to get offended, because I think Jimmy 100% misclassified who Dr. Cornel West is right here. Because Dr. Cornel West is not the kind of person that just lead with identity politics, Democrat nonsense. He talks about ending the wars. He talks about ending the police state, and he talks about ending capitalism. So honestly, Jimmy got off the wrong foot at the beginning here. You're gonna see the conversation. Go
I
ahead.
agree with that assessment. Go ahead, JB. Go ahead, Sabby. I agree with that assessment. Go ahead, Sabby.
Yeah, it's also on Dr. West's website. Like if you want to see where he stands in reference to the policies, that's on the campaign website. But yeah, that's a good point. And I think that as many Cornel West interviews I've seen since he's announced that he's running for office, he doesn't lead with those things. And even when we've interviewed him, he doesn't lead with those things.
Yeah, that's why it's so ridiculous.
We must say this. We must say this is that even our white allies like Jimmy, I would say is not in the place when it comes to racial issues that we would like. So him classifying a discussion of white supremacy or the white power structure as identity politics is simply wrong.
Yeah.
That's not identity politics. So to your point, Nick and Sabby, both of you were making this point. This is one of the things where I was like, yeah, this is not this exchange here. I'm not so sure Jimmy's right because the question is put off. So I don't know if Jimmy is just using shorthand. You get what I'm saying? He's using shorthand, like instead of making a distinction. Okay, not talking about white supremacy is identity politics, but I'm just saying, you get what I'm saying? He's not saying that in a conversation. He's just kind of listing things, but it makes it seem that's what he's doing. So I would just like to get some more clarification.
And that's why, and I'm gonna let the clip continue here, but that's why you guys see this. It goes sideways real fast here because, like, if I was Dr. West, I'll be like, nigga. Are you calling me a liberal?
Who the fuck are you talking to?
Like you had Jimmy, you had Dr. West on your show quite a few times, man. Like when has Dr. Cornel West ever been this fucking guy who only talk about divisive identity politics issues instead of talking about war and other economics? And that's why Dr. Cornel West kind of got offended here. But anyway, let's continue so you guys see what happened next.
Well, I appreciate again the clarity and candor. What you have to say, we have profound disagreements, brother. When I organize around white supremacy, I'm not making some utilitarian calculation. I'm speaking as a black man who comes out of a tradition that's been terrorized and traumatized by white elites. And that does not in any way mean it takes me away from class issues. Class issues are crucial. Class issues are fundamental. But it doesn't mean that I'm putting up with white supremacy. One of the problems is that you get too many folk who want to talk class, and can't say a mumbling word about white supremacy, police brutality. You can't say a mumbling word hardly. Or when they do say it, you call it identity politics as if it's not connected to class. I'm hitting these head on. I'm standing with the workers when it comes to strikes. I'm standing with the workers when it comes to greedy bosses.
So Dr. Cornel West said he's standing with the workers. So why is Jimmy upset here? So why does Dr. Cornel West standing with the workers and being right on policy, is that erased because he disagrees with you on race? So some white allies are willing to break class solidarity because we have a different analysis of society than you. So this is the part where Dr. Cornel West is 100% right.
And
it's kind of what we touched on earlier before. But go ahead.
I would like to point out a punchline from a rapper named Crooked Eye. And he had explained, he had said, some see abortion as brutality, but don't care if the police leave me a corpse or a casualty. And that is the white left right now. Like they do when it comes to class, they love RBN. Oh, we talking about all coming together and whatnot, but when we're talking about black issues, oh wow, don't talk about race. Why the fuck not? How can I not talk about crushing capitalism? Like that's not directly linked to white supremacy. What you guys don't want to hear is that you're benefiting from white supremacy like every other motherfucker before you have done. And you might not be benefiting from it like your grandfather did, but you damn sure are doing better than what we are doing these days. And even in comparisons, if I walk around my hood or walk around Michigan with my guns and my boys, we all got our guns out, and the white militia is doing it at the same time, who's going to get stopped first? Who's going to get their rights violated first? How do we not talk about race when it comes to capitalism?
Yeah.
This isn't some, oh, look, you a fucking racist. No, the system is racist. And if you feel some type of way about us saying something about it, then maybe you still feel some type of way in your fucking heart. Maybe you still a fucking racist in your heart, and all that leftist perfume that you spray on yourself cannot cover up the shit that you really are.
I just want to add.
Go ahead, Seth.
I'm sorry. I just want to add. That's a really good point there, Rome and Nick. I just want to add. I think when some people here put connect with people by class first, and then you can talk about the other issues. What I've noticed, particularly online, people are actually saying, don't talk about race at all. And there's a difference between, we talk about what the Black Panthers did. Yes, they organized along class lines, but the Black Panthers were not willing to work with the Young Patriots until they denounced their racism. And not everybody stayed. And we got to be clear about that. Some people left the Black Panthers when this coalition happened, and some people left the Young Patriots because they were not willing to do that. And they did not want to organize with a different group of people. So it wasn't all roses around here. But what I'm saying is, you really cannot separate the two. And I'll give you a perfect example. What we saw happen, or what we just heard about happen in Jacksonville, Florida, the Black people who were killed at the Dollar General, the Black people that were killed in the church in South Carolina, the Black people that were killed at the supermarket in Buffalo, New York, that had nothing to do with class and 100% to do with race. You see why we can't separate the two? There are certain things that happen to us that we have to deal with as Black people. And even when you get into the intersectionality of it, there are certain things that Nick and CJ and Rome and JB have to deal with as Black men that I don't have to deal with as a Black woman, and vice versa. You see what I mean? When Black men get pulled over by the police, are they being pulled because of their class or because they're Black?
Right.
So these are things that you need to think about. And no, you cannot just sit up there and say, like, when people say, guys, don't talk about race, just talk about class. No, bullshit. You either in solidarity with me for both, or you're not in solidarity with me at all. Because when the racial shit happened, a lot of times the people who get on board with us for class, when the racial shit happened, they disappear. I'm just keeping it real.
I remember being out there with CJ, and I was trying to, go around and do what I do. And I'm talking to this conservative dude about, he mad because he can't get his guns. It's hard to get your guns. I said, you know why it's hard to get your guns? Because y'all motherfuckers didn't speak up when they was doing that shit to the Black people. The only reason why it's hard for you motherfuckers to get y'all guns in California now is because of the Black Panther Party. You didn't speak up. Now we all oppressed. Yeah.
One of the things that I wanted to bring up, and a lot of times people, can I share this tweet really quick? So I brought this up, and I think this also needs to be, hampered upon. I said in the tweet is, I appreciate you understanding this. It says, when you look at the polls regarding health outcomes, housing, education, criminal justice, food insecurity, and jobs, who fares the worst in these categories? They're all class issues. Race equals class. When you talk to Black people, when you talk about the disparities between us, when it comes to things like health outcomes, who fares the worst in our healthcare system? Black people. Okay.
Black
who
women.
fares the worst within housing when it comes to race? Black people. Who fares the worst when it comes to education? Black people. Who fares the worst when criminal justice? And here's the thing. When we talk about class, right? How many Black people can actually vote, and how many people who are Black who are actually in prison? 40% of the prison population is Black, even though we're only 13% of the population. And then on top of that, then
they're not convicted, JB. Don't leave out that, because the white people love to say that motherfucking bullshit. Don't leave out that most of these people are not convicted of a fucking crime. They are just there.
That's true. And to add to your point, the exoneration rate is actually the highest among Black people. But my point is that all these Black people that have records, guess what? It locks them out of getting better jobs, which is a class issue. And then on top of it, because they have convictions on their record, they can't vote. So then that's another class issue. And then a lot of us are still locked away, which means it's a class issue for our families. So that provider's no longer there. So when we talk about race and class, and by the way, Sabby, Nick, Rome, Sabby, Nick, Rome, and Sabby, and CJ, I'm sorry. How did we get here? How did our ancestors get here in the first place? Was it because they just hated black people? No, it was class, because they saw a group of people that they can bring over and say, hey, we're going to have these people work for free as chattel. And they kept us in a second-class position this entire time. And you can say, well, you know, we've had the Civil War, we had the Civil Rights era. The thing is that the work is not done. It is not done, because we're still considered second-class citizens, and especially when you look at the institutional racism. That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about just people riding around in white hoods and stuff like that. No, we're talking about the institutional biases that still exist today, especially when it comes to jobs, education, healthcare, and all the like. And then on top of it, there's another thing that I need to point out, is that why don't you, as a white person, have healthcare? Why don't you have universal healthcare?
Wait, I got the video for that. I got the video to show.
But yeah, Sabs, you know, you actually played it. Yeah, go ahead.
All right, I'm gonna share this video because this is a perfect example how legislation and laws that we've had passed in this country that were meant to target black people actually ended up hurting poor working class white people as well. So I'm gonna share this video, and this is actually Tom Hartman from back in the day, back when Tom used to be based, and Tom's not that way anymore. I know, but listen to this. Everybody need to hear this since we brought up healthcare. Let me know. You guys should be able to hear. Can you hear this?
No, I can't hear.
You can't hear?
No.
Oh, I think I forgot to select the thing. Sorry. I'm not used to share audio tab. Yep, I forgot to do that. Okay. Now you should be able to hear it.
White people, watch this video and I'll be right back.
He published a book called Race, Tendencies, and Traits of the American Negro, in which he lays out all the numbers, and then he concludes that if we simply avoided allowing black people to have any access to health care, then within 2 or 3 generations, the whole race would die out, and that would solve the race problem in America. When Teddy Roosevelt, 1912, proposed a national health care system, people said no because black people will get it. When Franklin Roosevelt proposed a national health care system, it was the same thing. We don't want black people to get it. When Truman tried it in 1947, same thing. Don't want black people to get it. We have to figure out a way to keep black people from using Medicare. And the way that they came up with was to have a 20% hole, a gap in Medicare, so that you had to pay 20% of your doctor's bill and your hospital bill, and that would discourage poor black people from showing up at the hospitals. Nearly 100% of the reason why the United States is the only country in the world that doesn't define healthcare as a right is because of racism. He published a book called Race, Tendencies, and Traits of the American Negro.
How many times do I have to say this? Racism is a detriment to you white folks, poor white folks especially. Because of racism, you poor white folks can't even get good health care because they thought if they could deny health care to black people that we would have been eradicated a long time ago. But hey, we still here and they have not changed the rules. How crazy is that? Even with Social Security, you have to pay 20% because of racism. We keep telling you, BIPOC keep telling you, black people keep telling you, it is not us that makes your life suck. It is those racist politicians and their racist legislation that they think that's going to harm us, but harms you at the same time. And they don't care if it harms you. They don't give a shit. And then you continue to vote against your own interest. All because a bunch of rich white people told y'all to hate black people because black people are doing stuff to you as a whole. And we're not. Because we don't control shit. We don't control the healthcare system. We don't control Social Security. We don't control your wages. We don't control shit. But they continue to tell you that it's us. So you turn your focus on us and harass the shit out of us for no fucking reason, when we have no power to affect your life as a whole community.
And people excuse, and she mentioned how they get poor white people to vote against their own interests. Meanwhile, people are excusing that. And then they blame Dr. West. They blame RBN. We need to soften our language so the white people don't vote against their interest. We advocate for universal health care, ending the wars. We advocate for the strengthening of the working class. Meanwhile, you guys want us to coddle white people because we may hurt their feelings, which will make them betray us. So how is it our fault?
I hope I hurt your fucking feelings.
How is it our fault that if we hurt their feelings, they betray our movement? That's our question.
Who are we really talking about is the question. And this is something when I was looking through this in my notes, this is one of my questions. Who are we really talking about? Because are we talking about tailoring a message to make racist Trump supporters feel okay to team up with Dr. Cornel West? Because if that's what we're talking about, I'm out on that. But if we're talking about simply tailoring a message, a campaign message, let me be specific, a campaign message that's centered around economics, we can do that. That does not preclude you from talking about race as a person, if that's what you want to talk about, especially if it's affecting you. Now, I do think it's a good time for me to interject this short video because
go ahead.
I have a slight, maybe it's not a slight difference. Luckily, my internet is working because this point that this guy makes, that I'm going to share this video, this point that this guy makes, he specifically talks about what we're talking about right now, about Black people, and like, how do Black people make their lives better? What strategy can they use to make their lives better? And let me share my screen here. 1 second, everybody. How can you make the lives better? But what this guy does is he breaks down how, in order to achieve those, you know what? I'm starting to think something's fishy up with this video because everything on my thing is working. So I'll pass it to you or you guys, and then I'll get this video prepared in a different way to play. Because that's what I'm saying. No, you think I'm joking? You think I'm joking? It's not. You think I'm joking? I'm not joking at all. Like, I'm not joking. I think there's other factors. I'm not saying specifically in this instance, but when I'm having issues and it's when I'm streaming, I'm very suspicious of it. But let me fix the video. I'll come back.
I'm suspicious of these comments. Some of these comments, people saying, they're saying race doesn't matter when you're rich. Somebody said the police know better than pull over Beyonce. That isn't true at all. Black celebrities get harassed a lot, by the police, by regular people, racist people, threatening their lives. Like, it doesn't matter if you are Black and you're not tap dancing for them, then you are a threat. You should be shut down. You should not have a fucking platform. It doesn't matter if you are somebody that's a podcaster, Beyonce, Jay-Z, whatever the fuck it may be. If you're not tap dancing for them, then they want you gone.
His name, Stephen A. Smith. Didn't Stephen A. Smith talk about his experience when he was getting pulled over by the police? Man, and if you watch ESPN, you watch sports, you know who Stephen A. Smith was. Like, Will Smith talked about that experience, still getting pulled over as a celebrity. So yeah, don't think that just because someone is famous that they're not going to get pulled over.
That puts a bigger target on your back. It literally puts a bigger target on your back. People know where they get obsessed with you. They know where you at. They know where you're going. They might even if you didn't break the law, they might just want to talk to you. And even though, they might not feel intent or ill intent, we are contemplating Capital One. Every time I get pulled over by the police, I am contemplating Capital One. I am contemplating my murder. I'm calling my mama and calling my kids, letting them know, hey, this might be it. They might shoot my black ass today. I got my gun on me. I don't know what's gonna happen. So let's see what's gonna happen. But do you got a gun in the car store? Yeah, it's in the glove department. And man, come on, man. Bullshit.
Yeah, we have a ton of super chats, so I'm gonna get to them because I'm sure we all running low on time. So we got a ton of super chats to get to, so let's get started with them as CJ comes back. I think I left off around right here. We try to get as many of these as possible. Thanks for $10. Rome's message is most effective. Red team wins, blue team wins, doesn't matter. Communists don't have a dog in this fight. This is what we've been saying. Dr. West's message is weak. Saying other team is milquetoast is a losing message. Absolutely well said. Thank for $5. Eric, if West drops out and tells me to vote Biden because Trump fascist, I will never vote again. I'm out. Now, one thing I will say, and I'm saying this willing to take a nail later. We asked Dr. Cornel West on our show, is he in it to the end? He said he was. So for the people that's saying that Dr. Cornel West is going to endorse Biden, I disagree with that. Our criticism, as you guys heard throughout this stream, is that Dr. Cornel West need to be harder on Joe Biden, but we need to be factual. We need to be intellectual. As far as we know right now, he told us to our face, so there'd be hell to pay if he turned around and changed his mind on this. He said to our face, brother to brother, that he's in it to the end. So I'll hold him to his word.
I swear, I hate these people, bro. This motherfucker said, you are permanently traumatizing your mom and kids. Am I?
Well, we don't have to worry about the trolls, bro. We don't have to worry about
that's
we don't have to worry about
the police in our community. That's
no,
harassing our community.
Trolls,
See, this is why you people need to learn, bro. Y'all need to shut the fuck up. If you call yourself an ally, to the left, to the black community, you shouldn't even think about some dumbass shit like that. Shut the fuck up, because you don't realize how white supremacy actually traumatizes us, how much undocumented and undiagnosed PTSD is actually running throughout our black communities. Shut the fuck up sometimes and learn. And then you can call yourself a class warrior. If you can't call yourself a class warrior if you're not a real ally to the black communities that you claim to care and fight for.
Yeah, but we don't have to feed the trolls. They trolls. Let's not feed the trolls. Let's read
I don't know, because I was saying some shit on Jimmy channel I didn't like. I saw a lot of comments I didn't like. And it's probably the same motherfuckers.
They for 199. Someone call out JD's hostility, and I'm a supporter. Thank you for the 199. I personally said, and me and CJ talked about this before, like, shit, you guys see my Marianne Williamson interview. Like, I don't give a fuck about tone. It's about the issues. That's what I focused on. I'm focused on the issues. I'm not here to tone police. That's not me. I'm not saying it's not a legitimate concern. Not saying it's not a legitimate criticism. That's just not my thing. Like, if Jimmy was rude, Jimmy was mean to Dr. Cornel West, okay, you guys think that the establishment was going to be nice to him? Like, Jimmy Dore is going to be the least of his concerns when this shit heat up. Anyway, thank you for the $2. That's just my personal thoughts. Thank you for the $2, DC. Cornel West playing the role of Captain Saving Joe. Once again, it's an own goal for no reason. Own goal for absolutely no reason. Thank you for the solidarity super sticker for 4.9. Because whether you agree with this statement or not, that is what people taking away with it. You know what I mean, fam? Like, whether you agree with that or not, it's not a good idea to be a third-party candidate and apologizing for someone you're running against at the end of the day. Thank you for the $100.
Jill Stein didn't. I was just gonna say, let's go back to Jill Stein, right? Jill Stein didn't do that.
Yeah, absolutely,
right.
Absolutely. Feel free to interrupt me anytime, guys. I'm trying to make
let me see if this works. I got it in a different form. Let me see if this works, because I think you will appreciate it. We've been talking about it, even some of the comments, but listen to this, what he says here about black people.
We still don't see anything, CJ.
It's still not playing. Oh, I give up, man. I give up. We just got to add this to another stream, because
we can always do it another time, because we still got.
I give up.
Yeah, I still got a few super chats. If you guys want to read some as well, feel free. I'm not trying to take over the stream or anything. We just want to make sure we read our super chats. So, thank for $100, Robert. Jimmy Dore exposed he's just a comedian on too many topics for me to just ignore anymore. First, the RFK Jr. interview, he knew nothing about Palestine. Now this attack on Dr. West. Jimmy Dore just a clown trying to attack people from the right. Libertarians, Fox News, people to build his audience. Thank you for the super chat, Robert. It's definitely a take. Thank you for the support, Nicholas, for being a new member. Thank you for the $2. Lao 66 calling out Robert Wayne. Robert Wayne, you been bad. Robert Wayne probably been bad in the chat. He's like, you a troll. Anyway, thank you for 499, Janice. They both make solid points. The thing is, a class-based dialogue is more effective. Not saying race is less important, just not as effective.
Because we live in a majority of these white people. We live in a majority white country where white people don't want to be held accountable. Of course, it's going to come off, you know what I'm saying? Like, oh, okay, we all can get along then. If I just don't talk about my troubles of being a black man in America. Of course. Of fucking course. But this is why you also lack black people in your fucking parties. And you wonder why. Because y'all don't talk about what actually goes on in the black community. Y'all not actually trying to no.
Why is it always that we have to suppress what's good for black people or what's good for the black community? We always have to suppress those things. They're supposed to be at the bottom of the list or not on the list at all to benefit the majority, but it's never the other way around. Like, absolutely. Why do we always have to come to the majority side? Why don't they ever say, you know what, I'm going to stand in solidarity with the black community on this issue? Why we always got to go to their side? You know, I don't see nobody trying to suppress. When we talked about Bernie Sanders campaigns and the universal policies, none of us were trying to suppress the universal policies because we said, yeah, everybody need these things. But when it came to the things that were specific to the black community, they didn't want to do it. So how many times are we supposed to, as black people, how many times are we supposed to put up with that bullshit?
Sacrifice our principles to them.
Exactly. And that's the point I made as well, because if you care about ending the Ukraine war so much, if you care about all these other issues so much, when you just like, all right, I don't care if you talk about this issue, we agree on something. They don't make that emotional calculation. They want us to make all the emotional sacrifices. So we see through you guys. We see through it. And then the funny thing is, and you guys think I even know, I tweeted about this earlier. The same people that say that we should to stop talking about identity politics, these are the same people that be like, "Oh my God, anti-white racism." Mm-hmm. And they are the same exact people that say that. The same exact people that be like, "Oh my God, the rise of anti-white racism." They're like, "Oh my God, stop playing identity politics, black people." The entire Republican Party, I said this many times before, I tweeted many times before, the entire Republican Party is white identity politics. And then I bring up the fact that 40% of the homeless population is black, right? You guys know, and this is why I about to show up earlier, I forgot, I'm going to show you guys this, to show you guys why race is connected to class. When you had civil asset forfeiture cases, 65% of the people that was targeted for civil asset forfeiture was black. 65% of civil asset forfeiture cases are black. But tell me more about how class and race are not intertwined at all. It's an absurd take. Yeah. Anyway, let's continue. I think for $5, Jimmy was correct. Cornel West needed to take the populist approach. Neoliberals destroy the term white supremacy. It's toxic now because the boutique left. Now, this is another thing I don't understand. Hold on. This is another thing I don't understand, fam. So you guys will acknowledge the fact that liberals hijacked our language in order for it to serve corporate agenda. So why would you guys allow them to do that?
No.
Wouldn't that help them out? Because we say, hey, woke was a term that was stole from the black community that means self-awareness, being aware of your surroundings, you acknowledging who your true enemy is. It is the exact opposite of the application that liberals use. So what liberals do, they take our issues, racial equality and racial struggle and social justice, and then they use that to justify imperialism. They are woke imperialists. They put rainbow flags on Raytheon, Boeing, and Wall Street. They use social justice issues. They hijack our language in order to advance the capitalist agenda. That is the accurate assessment. That is how you should educate people about what's going on. You don't say that social justice issues are tied to the neoliberal agenda, because that is not true. Because black radicals on this channel is calling for the end of the military-industrial complex. We are calling for the end of Raytheon and Boeing.
Yes.
So you guys need to be intellectual enough to make the difference between neoliberals like Nancy Pelosi, who use social justice issues to cover up for their crimes, versus real radicals who calling out the system, like civil asset forfeiture that impacts 65%. 65% of them are Black Americans.
And can I bring
Go ahead,
Debbie. Because one of my points is, in Rome, you came on my channel to actually discuss this, and I hope you remember. But there was a poll that I actually put out. I think it was last year. But this is an interesting point. I think that everybody needs to take a look at. I put out a poll. Over 2,500 people actually answered this poll. I said, please answer if you're not Black. Would you trade places with a Black person in the U.S.? 83% said no.
Hell no.
Why did they say no? Why did they say no? Because because if it was just a social issue, you guys wouldn't really give a fuck, because you guys would be okay economically. But because you know what happens to us economically, you guys are like, nah, because this would actually depress and suppress me on a fundamental material level. And so, look, and it is just like what comedian Chris Rock said, that a lot of poor white people wouldn't even trade places with a rich Black person. Why? Because you guys know that we get fucked over all the time, no matter what our financial circumstance. And people are like, oh my God, Oprah Winfrey. Yeah, so what? 6 billionaires out of 600? Give me a fucking break. Are you kidding me right now? Like, here's the thing. Race and class are intertwined. They have been together ever since the inception of this nation. You guys have to get that through your head. That's part of the dialectics, and that is part of the intersectionality. And I know some of y'all hate the word intersectionality, but it is true. You guys need to read up on this. Midwestern March just put out a great tweet regarding how Black people, being Black and race and class are intrinsically linked. And the thing is that here's the point I need to make, and this needs to be honed in on so much. In order for a systemic change to happen, you have to listen and rethink and reapply your stance on people who are the most marginalized. And some of y'all are going to hate the fuck out of me for saying this, but even gender is a class issue. Yeah, that's right. I said it. Because that's the shit that people don't really regard. All these social issues are class issues. And people are going to look at me like, you're crazy. But the thing is, if you look at all these issues, one for one, when in regards to healthcare, housing, education, war, all these things, it all comes down to, if you're not cis hetero, white, and male, then guess what? Everything else gets below that, because it is a class issue. And I'm sick and tired of people going, well, no, you shouldn't talk about identity. Identity equals class. How about that? And the thing is, you can try to argue it away all the time, all you want. But the thing is, that's exactly the way it is. And if you look at all the polls of how people are faring within different identities, they always go below the people who are white, male, cis, and hetero. That's the way it is. And so we have to read this thing together. And some of y'all are going to be hurting your feelings about this. But guess what? We're going to have to stick with that.
Yeah, I'm tired of calling these people.
Let's get some more super chats, because we still got quite a few to get through. So thanks for the $20. Tina, I find it interesting that liberals, academics love talking about Black-white inequality without talking reparations as the solution. It shows they aren't serious and shouldn't be taken seriously. Well said. Thanks for $20. And I'm just going through it because I don't want to skip any, but I gotta get through these, so I'm just trying to get through them, guys. I don't want to disrespect anyone here. So thanks for $20, Brian. The more Dore tried to find unity with the right, the more he's defended and embraced white supremacy, I'm assuming, sympathizers. He used to defend Black Lives Matter protests. Now he attacks them at property destruction while doing everything to defend January 6th. Defend January. Oh, you kind of lost me there at the end there, sir. But anyway, let's continue. I don't want to comment too much just because I want to make sure I read A1 super chats. Thanks for the $5. Exactly, Savvy, which is why Dr. King said injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, and why white working class should care about our issue. You guys can chime in, but just feel free. Just know we're short on time, so try to make it quick if you guys do interrupt, because we got a lot of super chats to get through. I'm not trying to silence you guys, but just be short if you do interrupt. You know what I mean? All right, dang, well, my mouse lost where I was. There we are. Thank you for the $100, France. The real problem is that liberalism changed the meaning of racism and white supremacy to be something you attribute to individuals rather than institutions. White supremacy needs to return to the original meaning, which traces roots to colonialism, not dismiss. That's exactly what Dr. Cornel West does. That's what we do, right? And we guys saw in the stream, we got a lot of criticism what Dr. Cornel West said. That is not one of them. His message on race issues is not one of them. But anyway, I'll keep it short. Thank you for the very insightful comment. I can go on that all day, honestly. But thank you for the 499. I'll try to keep every single comment very short. And CJ, like I said, if you guys want to interrupt, feel free, but keep the interruption short because I don't want to skip any super chats and we got a lot to read. Thank you for the $10, DC. Addressing class issues is how you speak to a larger demographic, more voters overall. Proposing solutions to remedy economic inequality for all Americans will help remedy racial inequality. And once again, that's the message of Dr. Cornel West, which is why I don't understand the criticism.
They don't want him to talk about it. They don't want him to talk about it at all because obviously there are some racist people they don't want to offend that they want to bring onto the bandwagon of this movement. And that's what it is. Go ahead, Sabby. I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead, Sabby.
I saw racist comments last night. I saw racist comments last night. Yeah. So the thing is, but to be specific about that, if people actually look at the campaign website, you'll see he's addressing those issues. That's what's weird to me. Like people even look, people even like,
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Riding off emotion. And I just wanted to piggyback off of JB what he said before we started the super chat.
Yeah, let me quit.
People feeling uncomfortable and whatnot. I'm telling you, they are only feeling uncomfortable. They do not want us to talk about our past and the things that we go through because they are racist in their heart. There is no reason why you shouldn't. Why you would call yourself.
Can someone take over super chats real quick? Sorry, Ron. Can someone take it over? I'll be right back. Can someone take it over where I'm at? I'll be right back.
Go ahead, Ron.
There's no reason to call yourself an ally and then have the nerve to tell a black person in America to not talk about race. Like, do you not have the same education that we have as leftists, as communists, whatever you want to deem yourself as? That is crazy. And to even have the privilege to not listen to what black people is going to, not wanting to listen to it and just ignoring it, that's just even more crazier. And then you're gonna tell us in our own spaces not to talk about the things that we go through as a community.
Because it makes them feel uncomfortable. And again, we have to go back to that message. And again, it's like, I'm sorry if you're uncomfortable, that's on you. But if we can sit through listening about your woes and your concerns, you can either sit through listening about our woes and our concerns, or you don't have to. But at the end of the day, like that's ridiculous. To me, what I hear is, let's not join us with all these other issues, but don't mention that you're black. Don't talk about the black stuff. Don't bring that over here. Let's not do. I thought the left was supposed to be for, some type of racial solidarity. Original left, not even just this Bernie Sanders campaign left. I mean, the original left was supposed to be for some type of racial solidarity and understanding the struggles that people that are marginalized go through, not just in this country, but all countries. But it seems like it's very clear to me that somewhere along the way, the idea of populism coming in, and yes, there are certain positions that we agree with in reference to populism, but that does not mean that we cannot talk about being black and we have to suppress those issues so that you feel comfortable. That is a big problem. And people have to get that through their heads, because I'll tell you right now, I'm not going to compromise who I am or the black community, my people, so that you feel comfortable. Because when we're in uncomfortable positions, I look around and I don't see some of the same allies on our side when we're going through things.
That is a great point, Sabby. I'll take over with the super chats. This is another one from Feral named Legion, $10 super chat. Let's go to the next one. This one from James, All-Star RBN. Last night, Dr. West let the ball go off his foot out of bounds on Jimmy Dore show. Also, Dr. West's platform on his website is meager and lacks specifics. I haven't gone back to see any updates in the last several months, so I don't know what it looks like to your point on the super chat. Next super chat, Brian, multiple stats and studies show Black people were and are worse off than any other racial group. The small minority of rich Black people doesn't negate that. That is true. And I'm reading them fast. So if you want to interrupt, just say, hey, I'm going to interrupt, because otherwise I'm just going to read through them real fast. The next one, Meteor. I'm sorry, I said it the wrong way. Meteor Dreams. And since I have a hard time seeing it, I'll read them, JB. Could you just go through them? Or if you want to read them, yeah, go ahead.
Meteor Dream says, my problem with Jimmy Dore is how he shit on trans people. I honestly have a problem with that myself. I'm going to say that Jimmy Dore really disappointed me on that as a gay person. And so, yeah, I'm just laying that out there. I actually think that he should have a conversation, especially with a group of trans people, who may have disagreements and agreements with them, in order to really clarify on this issue.
I mean, what the fuck is the problem with what is the real problem with trans people? What the hell? Nothing is wrong. They just regular people. What the fuck?
Yeah.
How would you have any issue?
Yeah. I'm going to continue. Let me see. A pharaoh named Legion says, it seems like good old American white guilt. Thank you very much for that.
Some of that's there. Some of that's in there. Go ahead.
Yeah. Big D says, that name. Universal policies can be prejudicially applied, so there must be language with them that prevents that. So race must be a part of the discussion. So thank you so very much for that. Bet you didn't know says, West filtering truth to spare an identity was the sad problem to me. COVID truth is filtered by fear of offending someone's identity. Ukraine war is filtered by fear of offending Ukraine identity. Thank you so much for that.
Dr. West is against the Ukraine war, so I don't understand.
I don't get. Like, what is you getting with?
I don't understand that at all.
Yeah. Let me see. Media Dream says, now that white people are poor and want unity under their terms, but in the 80s, when they were in the upper middle and middle classes, they shit on people. Thank you very much for that.
Oh, Meteor Dreams. I thought you don't watch us. I'm sorry. I'm feisty today. It's hot. September, it's hot.
Nothing better than spicy savage. Nothing better than that.
All these motherfuckers be secretly watching us.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Eric.
I don't even know who that is.
Eric Husso says, Jimmy was saying that West needs to leave a class, not ignoring race issues. Jimmy agreed with every race issue brought up. Dems use race to squash class. Thank you very much. We have DC coming in saying, why should anyone think that an anti-fascist coalition should require milquetoast neoliberal warmongers like Joe Biden? That was from DC. Thank you very much for that. Brian Bradshaw comes in and says, Cornel West cannot be fully trusted. Go back to his debate with Sister Soldier. There is a real contrast between him and real traditional Black radicals. I like Jimmy, but he showed his racist side. Thank you very much for that.
And we all have to remember, we all had an awakening too at some point. Like I told you this multiple times, I voted for Barack Obama. Mm-hmm. So that video he talking about with Sister Soldier, that goes back.
That's 40 years. That's almost 40 years. That was 80 something, and that's closing up 40 years. Come on, man.
I'll just be real quick and say this, like, and I think there's a reason why Jane put two of my tweets up, and he kind of asking like, why are you not like them? Because like when you listen to John Baraka, when you look to Glenn Ford, when you listen to Mark Kimberly, and countless others, they all have to take that Joe Biden Democratic Party is the biggest enabler of fascism that is no better or worse than the Republican Party. So you have all these Black radicals, not only are being, I know you guys think we're rowdy, but there's way smarter people, way more intellectual people that make that same exact argument. So our question is like, Dr. Cornel West, we're trying to get you caught up to Mark Kimberly. We're trying to get you caught up to Glenn Ford. So the part of the interview where Dr. Cornel West pretend that Jimmy Dore was some sort of Trump sympathizer and Trump supporter, that's absolutely not the case. The criticism that we want to hear comes from the Black radical tradition that we shouldn't trust any of these parties, which I hope he's learned from. But anyway, JB, you can continue.
Okay. So now we have Ricky Perez Jr. says, Jimmy defends the Rittenhouse verdict, Boogaloo Boys, and tells anti-Semitic jokes at his stand-up shows.
We got all the Jimmy Dore haters in this stream.
Oh man!
So one thing I say, because the Boogaloo Boy one is the one that always weird to me, because he brought on a guy and he talked about how he was in support of the LGBTQ community, how he was supporting Black Lives Matter. So a guy interviewing someone who wasn't aware of his ideology is not him propping up or defending the Boogaloo Boy. There's always was a ridiculous argument. So like when I see that first one, I can't take it seriously. That's textbook. Well, you can have smart criticism like we have on the stream, but then there's dumb ones. I believe that white people.
You talking about Magnus? Magnus?
Yeah, Magnus. Like I believe that. Yeah, Magnus is a great guy. Like you guys, like I know the guy. Like he's not this scary motherfucker you guys think it is. And I also believe, to be consistent on my issues, what did we say? We said that white people need to talk to other white people, regardless of what they feel about race, and that's exactly what we did. No, I had no problem with that, because I think white people need to be having this conversation with everybody, whether in Boo Boys, no matter what. That's your problem. That's not our problem. Mm-hmm. So yeah, go ahead, CJ.
No, I was just gonna say, like, what is the point of this? Like, we can list several things to say, well, these things make him a leftist. You think him interviewing? He didn't become a member. He interviewed a person that, for some reason, him telling the jokes, he's a comedian. He's a comedian, and this is my wheelhouse. Joke telling is specifically going at targeted groups. That is the intention of humor, to talk about those things that are uncomfortable. So this whole thing you missed me on, but I saved this too. It's a good time to interject this comment, because if you look at this comment, Trump, this person obviously don't watch RBN. You obviously don't watch us, because it says Trump attempted an electoral coup and attempted a violent coup. How is this just a threat? RBN, CJ, make this make sense. It's not going to make much sense if the premise of the question is absurd. Trump did not do any of the stuff that you're saying. We aren't people who buy into January 6th nonsense. Okay? January 6th is a setup. January 6th is a distraction.
A lot of people lost today, CJ.
Okay?
They lost.
So stop it. So this stream, the thing about this stream, and I can bring it down, you can go to the next super chat. But the thing about this stream, everybody, is we didn't just get our regular people.
Yeah.
It was a bunch of liberals in here. It was even racist people in here. It was a bunch of just everybody came. And obviously we have some liberals who think we buy into January 6th, that we buy into Russian hate, that we buy into any of this stuff. We absolutely don't. So the framing of your question is already off, but you can continue with the super chats. I just wanted to say that part.
Yeah, that's funny. That's funny.
So Dorset B says, same trap, new sheepdog. Will I vote for West? Yes. If he loses, will he sheepdog for Dems? Probably. Tired of sheepdogs in the greater evil nonsense.
He's running in the general election. Exactly. He's running in the general election, guys.
Yeah.
God damn it. Fucking think before you comment on our page. God damn.
He's running in the general. Like, you guys are acting like he's running in the Democratic primary. He's not a Democrat. He's running in the Green Party. So therefore, he's literally running against Biden.
That doesn't make any sense. I think people still thinking that, though, JB.
Yeah.
And Nick, I think they still thinking like, oh, well, after he loses the nomination, he's going to endorse Joe Biden. When have you seen Green Party presidential candidates drop out? Did Jill Stein drop out? Did Howie Hawkins drop out? You see what I'm saying? Like, that's why I'm like, you guys got to get yourself out of that mindset.
And even if they do endorse them, it's up to the voters to take that endorsement and do something with it. So you know what I'm saying? Like, you have to vote for Joe Biden, even, you know what I'm saying? If that's in your heart, you do that. But I haven't seen a Green Party candidate drop out and endorse a Democrat nor a Republican. You know, hopefully tradition don't get broken here. But I just think it's asinine to even think like that. Like, like even if
it's happened once. It's happened once about 3 decades ago.
Democrats. They don't vote for Democrats. So even if he do endorse them, they will more likely will not vote for Democrats nor Republican.
Yeah. Here's the next one. Miss Me With It says, ask O'Malley, you should tell her about it. Brilliant Brilliant gentleman, I do have to say. DC says Cornel West has to be nominated first. He doesn't automatically get to run in the general election. Is anyone else running in the Green Party primary? That's a good question. I heard somebody's running, but I don't think that he has much of that person has much of a chance. So really, technically, I would say that Dr. Cornel West is the presumptive nominee, but that can always change. So, yeah. So next one is Brian Bradshaw says Cornel doesn't have to be an extreme black radical. The case for racial justice can be made logically and reasonably. Cornel should support reparations. He does.
Yeah, I don't know why people keep saying that. That's
Yeah,
on
what's
the
the
website
website?
too.
And what do you mean extreme
literally
black
on the
radical? Like
website.
that's some racist ass shit, bro. What you mean? What the fuck you mean, man? What does that mean? Extreme black radical? Are you listening to yourself and you call yourself an ally of black people? For wanting justice, for willing to give our life to fight for what's right. That's what makes me a stream. That's fucking crazy. I'm just living my life and trying to make a better one for the future generation up under me. That doesn't make me a stream. That makes me aware.
Mm-hmm. All right, friend to the show and all things ballot initiative. Roger Meadow says, if 4 people on this panel got $10 yet, one of you has $1 and give all of you $20, is the 5th person made equal with all the others? Are they made whole?
Here come Roger with the 2-part word problem from math.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna get you, Roger. I'm gonna get you.
Yeah, I'm bad at math, man. All right. The next one says Lloyd Tackwell says Dr. West needs to hire Jimmy Dore for campaign advisor. Okay, thank you.
All right, y'all are getting ridiculous now because
yeah.
I don't know if you looked at it. We're at 98 super chats. I swear that I said 81 like 10 minutes ago.
Yeah.
You guys in the audience keep adding super chats right here. Y'all trying to have us here all day, huh?
Yeah.
But yeah,
Eric,
but thank you. No, but thank you though. I've never seen that. That's why I was surprised when I just saw that. I've never seen 98 super chats. That's crazy. That's crazy. But thank you so much for that.
Yeah. Eric says Biden has dementia of fascism. Thank you very much. Brian Bradshaw says great analogy, Roger. Thank you so much for that. Skyzar says Dr. West hasn't prepared well. His run made more symbolic than anything, but still that doesn't help. Thank you so much for that one. Nicholas comes in and says, we need this all-star RBN panel more regularly, please. And thank you. Thank you very much for that.
Absolutely.
Alan Paulson says Cornel needs to speak to all people, including Trump supporters, and quit demonizing Trump if he wants to get elected. Thank you very much for that.
Again, I wouldn't even focus on either one of them. I wouldn't even focus on Biden or Trump. I just focus on myself and my campaign.
Yeah.
Stop demonizing the voters. Fuck the president, the ex-president. Fuck them. Talk shit about them. You know, show people that you are farther left, that you are willing to deliver all those promises that Biden had. There's no difference between them, really. But that Trump had promised in 2016. He promised us universal health care. He promised that the NAFTA deal wouldn't affect the Michigan and the Midwest as much as it did. He promised us jobs and corporate, all right then. That's what he should focus on. Don't demonize the voters, but demonize the man that has led them astray. So you can talk shit about Trump, but let the people know that they have been led astray. And that's how you win.
Okay. Thank you very much. Roger Meadow says, time for JB to challenge West for Green Party nomination. What? No.
Let's fucking go.
KDK7 says, Dr. Cornel West campaigning like a Democrat. Thank you so very much for that. DC comes in. He says, this is called control opposition. Hashtag the fix is in. Tina Love comes in and says, Savvy is a savage. Knock him the F out. Thank you so very much.
Going with the uppercut.
Yep. None of your business says, is West the Black Bernie? He said, vote Biden knowing history. I guess he's saying that. DC says, SCOTUS decided the 2020 that LGBT plus folk are included in the 1964 Civil Rights Act and cannot legally be fired for sexual preference, gender, orientation. And yet we have a lot of shit that's going down in state laws and things like that regarding people who are trans and shit. But
in my state, you can be fired for no reason. So there's that.
Yeah, and I live in a right to work state. I live in Florida, by the way, if in case anybody wonders. So DC says Neil Gorsuch helped expand LGBT plus.
I'm canceling your ass. Cancel JB.
Here's the thing. Has any of the LGBT rights actually been codified into law besides the Civil Rights Bill? Has that been, like gay marriage, has that been codified into law? No, that can actually be overturned just like the Roe v. Wade. So it's not as solid, of a foundation as a lot of people think.
I think they did it last. I think they did it last year, JB. I think they did it last year. Didn't they vote to codify it last year? The House. I thought when Dems still had the majority in the House, they voted to codify it last year. I thought they did.
Somebody needs to correct me on that, but I don't think they did because it would have been something I heard about.
I thought they did because I thought they added interracial marriage to that as well, if I'm not mistaken.
I could be wrong, but I need to look that up. Continuing on, Roger Middle says, yes, Sabrom, I thought the same. Never got to policy. Thank you so very much. Dorset says, if West can evaluate something as simple as Biden is a fascist and refuses to say it, he can't topple.
How the fuck he topple capitalism?
Sorry. How the fuck can he topple capitalism? Okay. Bet you didn't know says Biden equals Republican light and West equals Democrat light. Thank you so very much, Future Homestead, for becoming a member. Thank you so very much for that. Grandpa, thank you so much for the super sticker. Harrison, friend of the show, says shitty interview by Jimmy. Thank you so much. Luca Clementi says you can't separate race and class. Racism is a tool of capitalism that keeps workers divided. Keep saying that. New Dope Boy says Rome hit the nail on the head. Yes, they want it one way. When we talk about class, they're happy. But when we talk about race, reparations, they talk shit. Thank you so very much for that.
And people will literally drop off the fucking stream too.
Yeah, it's true. Dorset, thank you so much. Says shit's complicated. When a minority cop beats a minority victim, is it race or class? It's both, in my opinion. Thank you so very much. Buster Peak 21 says a lot of racism seems manufactured by capitalists. Creating racist makes it easier to implement capitalism.
Now, just a very quick pushback. Very quick, because I know we're short on time. This is a very simple lesson my daddy taught me. If you had a super chat, you can put it back up. He said racism is manufactured by the capitalist class, and they definitely take advantage of it. But when you see the pictures of those white people yelling at the black kids moving in, remember when they were desegregating schools and they had this famous picture of all these white people like throwing stuff at this black girl, yelling profanity. Like, it's a famous picture, right? You guys know all the motherfuckers are alive, right? And all the motherfuckers raise kids. And so the old racist people that used to lynch Negroes and used to be against segregation, do you think they're like, oh, I'm actually gonna teach my kids that all races are equal, though? Even though they teach their kids to be racist. That's how it grows. That's how it changed. That's what my daddy told me years ago. Because my daddy grew up in Alabama. My dad, I told the story 1,000 times on the show. He used to have brawls with white racist gangs that used to enforce like these segregation codes. Like, they used to attack black men that used to go late out at night. Like, you guys had no idea how bad it was. A lot of these people are still alive. Like, these people that my dad used to fight with, they're still alive. They got kids. They teach their kids stuff. You guys think that racism will just go away? Who the fuck you think is raising the kids?
That infamous Time magazine cover where it's the black man being hit in the stomach with the U.S. flag by the white guy? That happened here in Boston. That guy's still alive. That guy still lives right here in Boston. And that was when white people attacked black people, black professionals in Boston, and said, you're taking our jobs. You see how this continues? It went from white people attacking black people saying you're taking our jobs to now people saying we're going to attack the immigrants because they're taking our jobs. There will always be a scapegoat so that you're not paying attention to the people that are the top 1% that are using all of us.
Yes,
Yep.
Abby. You guys know, just in our capacity, CJ, you guys know the lady that got Emmett Till lynched is still alive? Still alive.
I think she just died.
She just died.
Oh, she just died? Oh, shit.
She just died,
Rest in piss. Rest in piss. I didn't know that. I legitimately didn't know that.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you. Go ahead, JB.
All right. So now we have Roger Meadow says blacks must register indie and we all must push for citizen ballot initiatives. Agreed. Thank you. All right. Brian Andrews says his dialogue among black leftists is exactly what was needed after the Dore and West interview. I agree. Thank you so very much.
You see, the whole team came together for this one. Thank God.
Sock Econ says both Cornel West and Jimmy Dore need to improve. To separate class from race, sexuality is not acknowledge them as part of class, is to not acknowledge them as parts of class struggles. Sorry. Thank you very much for that. Roger Meadow says, Eric Shu, no, don't stop me. We need you to vote for CBIs. Thank you so very much. Patrick S is coming in saying supporting the cause and I'm loving the conversation. Thank you so very much for that. Eric says, did Rome just call me a troll?
Yep.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Moving on. All right, Cake Batter, thank you so very much for the super sticker. I'm trying to get through these as fast as possible. The Bitter Pill, thank you so very much for the super sticker. More Spice coming in saying, thank you so very much for becoming a YouTube member, More Spice. Sock Econ says, we also got to remember that elite whites will always be the true whites, while working class whites are white when convenient for the elite. Thank you so very much for that.
So other than that, they gonna call y'all trailer trash.
Mark Thigao says, imagine if the mainstream media had shows with quality breakdowns like this. It is
imagine if independent media did at this point. Not many. But anyway, go ahead, JB.
You're right. It is so refreshing with real, honest discussions. Thank you, RBN. Thank you. August says, how come Rome gives and defends drugs to the homeless? How come he says,
Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah.
Man, we practiced some people on this stream, man.
I wanted to address this. I saw this one. And how come Rome gives and defends? I haven't given, I sold drugs. I sold some drugs, but I don't give drugs away for free. That'll be an idiot move, especially in this economy. Yeah, especially my kids need something at the end of the day. But no, I don't give drugs, but I do defend the use of drugs because people, you're not going to get people to just get off of drugs in a capitalist society. People need, rehabilitation centers and somewhere where they can go and somewhere where they can really find themselves and get clean once again. So I cannot, sit here and act like, oh, well, just stop doing drugs. Like, no, this is the way that they are coping with under late stage capitalism. So my thing is to meet them halfway. And this is why me and Sabby in November, we're going to be introducing my clinic out in Boston. We're going to be helping the communities that have been pushed together that are beat down, shot up, and have drugs and diseases running through their community. And we're going to try our best to meet these people in the middle. And I'm not going to get them off the drugs, but I can try to stop the disease spread amongst these people, and at least try to coach them to get them clean, get them to the first step of getting them clean. And the first step of getting them clean is being there and having a place for them to go for help. But they say you have to kill people or you're a racist. I mean, if you don't want to stop the people who are killing people, like what's going on in Israel, what's going on in South America, these people are using racist tactics. We are talking about apartheid. We are talking about people who are literally killing people because of their race. So if you don't want to stop the people who are killing people because of their race, then yes, you are a racist. You are like, you just letting it go by. Even if you don't feel the same way that they feel, then you are still letting it go by, and you are letting it happen. And you are no better than the people who are out there killing just because of someone's race or where they was born.
Can I shout this out from Joe?
Okay.
It's important. It's in reference to what Rome just said about Joe said RBN should do a GoFundMe for Rome so that he can finance a 501c and also hire a grant writer or two so that Rome can be self-funding. Maybe not GoFundMe considering what they did with Gray Zone, but there's another one too. Other ones to use. Just wanted to shout that out.
Thank you so very much. Now we're going on to the next one. It says Max Richter says, wouldn't it benefit the Black community if we had free education, cut military police funding, and got everyone healthcare? If someone ran on that and no specific Black issues, wouldn't that be an acceptable candidate? The thing is that as far as the Black community, that's also what a lot of candidates like Cornel West is actually running on. So
yeah,
don't tell him, JB. Don't tell him. I'm telling you.
all right.
When we say it's race baiting, though,
I'll be back.
Let's move on. Aberdeen 71. Thank you very much for the super sticker. We also have None of Your Business coming in saying, what percentage of voters do we want in the movement? I don't know what that means. CLSRCE. But thank you so very much. Top says, thank you so much for the super sticker. All right. Says, OKME says, good work, Sabby and gentlemen. Complex issues. Let's not forget, in the class race dynamic of the U.S., rich Blacks are enemies of the majority Black folks. Wealth disparity within Black folks is wider than between white and Black. It's not just white versus Black. Thank you so very much.
We did many analysis of that as well. Trust me. I don't think there's a single YouTube channel that exists that called out the Black capitalist class more than us. Like me, literally just Nick and CJ alone. Like no one called the Black capitalist class more than us. But anyway, go ahead, JB.
Yeah, we do it a lot. And let me interject here. Scrolling at the bottom, you'll see our Patreon. We got 1,500 people. We've had 4,500 people come through and watch our stream at some point already. And this is not even on replay, just live. So we should be able to gain some Patreon members. Let's set a goal for 15 new Patreon members. The way to support RBN is this way. The only employee we have is paid through our Patreon. So you want to support her, she does. That's the way you do it. So come on, 1,500 people.
You got muted, CJ.
They got the CJ ass.
CJ, check your sound.
They are. I swear they've been fucking with him all stream.
The feds are after you, CJ. All right, David Kennedy says, imagine thinking Donald Trump has done more fascist stuff in his life than Joe Biden. Elements of fascism, my rear end. I could address that, but we're pressed for time.
Yeah,
you see, Jura Malevich says, Medicare for all is anti-racist, anti-patriarchy, anti-classism, and the like. If people are against Medicare for all, that means they are right. Yes. Imagine if West said this out loud. The part I didn't say, it's about policies and education. Thank you so very much for that.
Michael, I think they were saying they against Medicare for all, you are on the right. That's what I think they were saying. I don't know. Anyway, go ahead, JB.
Thank you. Michael Perez, thank you so much. He says, love you guys. Don't listen to the haters and keep up the good work. Love the no BS approach. I'd rather you guys tell me the hard truth about race rather than sweet lies to make people feel better.
Now that person is based. That's what. That's exactly what. That's all we can ask for, right? Absolutely great comment. Great comment.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. Himandi says, Sabby Sabs, can you link us the video on the racist history of preventing universal healthcare? I also have the link. I'll put it in the chat right when I'm done with this as well. Thank you so very much. Neo's algorithm says, so we done with Jimmy Dore? We didn't say that, and we didn't presume that.
Oh, that's the fucking, that's a salty Marianne Williamson staffer. One of the few Marianne Williamson staffers left.
I thought
you hate RBN. Why are you watching?
All right.
Anyway, go ahead, JB.
Cake Batter says, did Trump care about people's feelings? Nope. Should Cornel? Interesting question. All right. Media Dream says, the left just now don't talk about gay and black. Sad. Yeah. Laugh 66 says, RBN, you respected me already. You give reaction to others with big bucks. I see it as easy for you to ignore my first super chat. I don't know if we actually. I don't think we did that.
I'm sorry, write in your diary about it, but we read it. But if we offend you, write a diary post, send an angry email. Let us really have it. But I'm pretty sure we read your comment. But anyway,
Yeah.
go ahead.
We read that one. Jura says, I don't get it. Ought to do all the analysis and reflections. We must do race, gender, class, and the like analysis and reflections. I don't get it. This is how we see our reflections in each other. Thank you very much for that. Media Dream says Jimmy Dore has been anti-gay and black for a while.
I wouldn't say that. I disagree with that.
Daphne says, I think
you guys heard my criticism of his recent take with the Dr. Cornel West interview, but I disagree with that 100%.
Yeah,
I disagree with that 100%.
Daphne says, I think leftist white people, white proximity people need to go and do the work with white fascists in order to turn them into masses, which is the hard job for the non-BIPOC leftists. There is not enough people doing that. Sounds like something that you said earlier, Nick, about white people actually going to those, people and trying to.
I don't like when people melted down over Jimmy Dore for having Big Blue Boy on. I literally did not understand it. You guys look, I'm like, nigga, we said we want white people to talk to each other about ending racial hate, and that's what Magnus, we followed each other. And whether you disagree with the group Big Blue Boy or not, Magnus was a guy who was trying to advocate white people to get over that and side with the black community, LGBTQ community as well. So you can criticize. He had a few bad takes I've seen. You can criticize that as well. But we want white people to come together in order to advocate for a better community, for racial harmony. That's what we want. And I feel like a lot of people mischaracterize that interview with Jimmy. Like, hey, I didn't know Blue Boys actually care about Black Lives Matter, and that's why it's weird when people say that like Jimmy made a weird alignment. And we are willing to criticize people on anything, but it always came off to me as a bad faith attack. Anyway, let's continue.
All right, thank you so much for that. DC says, I'm not saying that by addressing economic inequality macro scale, we have to ignore issues of racial prejudice disparities in terms of policing, etc. Thank you very much for that. Brent says, if you're uncomfortable hearing from the marginalized, you wear that shit covering perfume Rome spoke about. Do the work to get comfortable listening. Thank you so very much. All right. So we have Jurek saying, we leftists must talk about these issues because we can't allow the ruling class and their institutions to be the only ones framing and talking about these things. Thank you so very much. Goba44 says, All-Star RBN, we are so screwed as a country, as a people, as a species. You guys represent the last dying members of a conscience of a people. Fight on. Thank you so very much. Thank you to Anthro Gray for the €2. Also, Mosaic says, rich black people will never vote against their class. That is true. Just like rich white people will never vote against their class. Thank you so very much for that. Bobby says, Philip Scott said this about Jimmy a month ago. Thank you so very much. Eric says, this is such a beautiful, insightful, and critical conversation. I continue to learn from y'all. Please continue your unapologetic revolutionary work. Thank you so very much for the love. Anthro, thank you again for the super sticker. Lorenz coming in saying, disappointed in both, but growing pains. Thank you for, or thumbs up for full panel. Thank you so very much. Firefay83 says, I don't get why Jimmy tries so hard to defend Trump while also insisting he doesn't like Trump. I want to like Dore, but he reveals his true colors with this shit. Hashtag Go West 2024. Thank you so very much for that. Leon Scott coming in saying, so he can demonize Obama, but not Trump. Cornel is not our leftist messiah. He is a tool. He's a tool to screw over DNC. We shouldn't expect more than that.
Well, can I just say something about the Messiah thing? Again, I just want to reiterate, there is no hero. Absolutely. Nobody is coming to save you. Always remember what we tell you. We have to help ourselves. We help ourselves through mutual aid, through organizing. But I'm already seeing it happen. And I was talking to Roger Meadows about this. All of a sudden, people are excited, like, yay, we got a third party candidate and da-da-da. And when these election cycles are all over, people go right back to sleep. We should look at this as a tool, a way, or not a tool, but a way to spread the message, right, about organizing and some of these policies. But at the end of the day, We have to organize in our communities and practice mutual aid, and we have to help each other. And if you are sitting here looking for a hero, you are going to be disappointed regardless of who wins, and we'll end up right back in that cycle. So just
Absolutely.
a reminder.
And I just want to say he's a tool to screw over the DNC. Okay, good. What the fuck?
I think
is that your problem?
Scott is
are you
actually
liberal?
happy about it.
Why should we care if the DNC gets screwed over, seeing how the DNC screwed over multiple millions of voters, just denied their right to vote for the candidate that they wanted? Why should we give a fuck that he's a tool to fuck up the DNC? We should want a tool that's going to dismantle the DNC. What are you talking about?
I think he agreed with you.
And he is actually cool with him being a tool to screw over DNC. I think that's what he's saying.
That was a powerful rant, though. We appreciate the rant. It was a powerful rant. It was a good rant, regardless.
I don't know these people, man. People got me. I don't know. I'm kind of twisted today on these people, man.
No.
It's good. It was a good rant, bro. It was a good rant. And remember, that's exactly what I said when we covered the announcement of Dr. Cornel West. When we switched to the Green Party, I said on stream, even if we agree with him, even when we support him, even when we like him, we do not. He's not a savior. This candidacy is not going to lead to a revolution. We all got to understand that. We all got to put in work in. That's why we started RBN chapters. And no matter what happens during the Dr. Cornel West campaign, nothing changes. Fam, you got to realize that if Dr. Cornel West drops out tomorrow, nothing fucking changes for us in terms of what we are doing. Not a goddamn thing. That's the point. Anyway, let's continue.
All right, let's continue. All right, thank you so much to N. Gibson for the super sticker. Now we have Leon Scott says he's running third party, so he's not Bernie 2.0. Thank you so very much for that. Also, Sam says Dr. West speaks mildly of the Democrats, refuses to call Dems the big fascists in the room, will take donations like Bernie and convince third-party voters in battleground states to vote Dem for concessions like Bernie did.
Again,
I ain't saying it no more. Nope. Thank you so much for the super chat, though. Puts the Mouse says, RBN, my daily dose of realness. Thank you so very much. Alexis Anderson says, love it when the whole RBN crew gets together. Thank you so for all you guys and Lady do. I'm sorry.
It's like a holiday.
Yeah. Yeah. Jingle bells, Batman smell. Okay. Your work is much appreciated. Circumvent reality. Thank you so very much for the super sticker. Eric comes in again and says, how am I a troll? I have solidarity with your issues. That sucks, Rome. You don't know me. Thank you very much for that.
Oh,
look. I just want to say this to all my self-proclaimed white allies. You cannot claim yourself to be an ally, just like I cannot proclaim myself to be a socialist or a communist. That is up to the people. That is up to the people. And if I feel like I am being disrespected in my own spaces or not heard, then take that in consideration, for real, because it's not up to you to consider yourself an ally for Black people. It's up for Black people to say that. So if I feel some type of way, then maybe you should, clean up your fucking act.
Wonder what he said. I seen Eric in the chat. He usually not bad, but wonder what he said. But anyway, we can continue. JB.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's
continue. I missed the original comment.
Mm-hmm. Bryce Smith says, keep up the great work, RBN. Thank you so very much. Lee Limon said, thank you so very much for the super sticker. Circumvent Reality says, sad y'all have to teach JD audience about racism. All right, let's continue. Eric says, a troll doesn't use his real name. I'm Eric Husho. I am an autistic, and this is me. Thank you so very much for that. We said Christian says, look at all these beautiful chocolate faces. Feels like I'm looking at my family photo album. I got 5 on it. My RBN family.
What a wholesome comment. We finally got a wholesome comment. Been chaos today, man.
We got 5 on it. All right. Max Raptor says, are you guys going to finish the JDCW interview?
We are probably not. It's probably not. We covered all of the main topics we want to cover. I don't know, maybe we may cover the rest of it. Who knows? But I think we covered a lot. We had a lot of learning lessons today.
Yeah. Louise Brooks says, I love RBN. Always killing it. I just read When Affirmative Action Was White by Ira Katz Nelson, excellent history on why systemic racism has to be part of the conversation. Thank you so very much. We also have Mosaic says, is RBN unwilling to work with people who only want to focus on class? Because I don't care to help rich Black people. I am Black. It's about class only for me.
And I said many times before, even debunking the liberal talking point, because I said, if I'm organizing for my community, if I'm organizing in the war, am I organizing to feed my people, give my people health care, and you show up, I assume you had good intentions. Because obviously you show up for an event that helps me out, right? But the people that like, you guys can't talk about race because you turning me off. You turning me off because you talking about race. I'm like, so? Don't show up then. I work with the people who do show up. So to answer your question, yes, you're invited. You're invited to the barbecue, invited to the cookout, as long as we don't trigger your ass. If we trigger you, that's your fault. That's not mine. So if you vibe with us, you work with us. Well, we don't know what you think in your mind when you show up. I'm like, all right, this is someone who fuck with us, right? But anyway, let's continue.
Also, just to add to your point, Nick, if they're turned off by talk about us talking about race and then they suddenly just don't want to work with us on these issues, then it was more about us talking about race and less about the actual issues that you wanted to join us up with. So just to point that out. Thank you very much. The Bitter Pill says, Professor Dumbledore was so condescending to Cornel. No wonder he was pissed. Even the way he titled the video was rude.
Yeah, that was some scumbag shit on Jimmy Dore Park to say that, oh, I endorse Biden when you know this man is a part of the Green Party, and you know he never really he's not endorsing Biden for this presidential election, and we didn't hear that during that interview him saying anything like that. That was to twist the man words like that. That was really scumbagish. Even for clicks, that's scumbagish. That's like some shit Vanguard would do. I would expect some shit like that from the Vanguard, but not Jimmy Dore.
Yeah. Let's continue. Let's see. Roger Meadows told us to read Rockfin. I'll get to Rockfin. I haven't logged in, but I'll get to that in a second. Circumvent Reality says anti-racism is a basic part of uniting the working class. Anyone who pretends otherwise is not a comrade, but a saboteur or a grifter. Thank you so much for that. Thank you, Cool Blue says, perhaps worth noting, one cannot rely solely on favorable electoral outcome to deliver necessary change. Thank you so very much for that. Outside Steelers fan says, Sabby is correct. You have to knock Jim Crow Joe the F out. Thank you so very much. Derek comes in and says, I think Jimmy just have a biased support for RFK Jr. and also a few blind spots in regards to race. He didn't have that energy for RFK Jr. I agree, actually. I do think that Jimmy has some blind spots regarding race. I do. Frank Johnson says, I love when the whole RBN team gets together and tells white libs to go to hell. Love from Memphis, Tennessee.
That is something we are quite good at. It's one of our favorite pastimes, that's for sure.
Oh, my goodness. Donald B says, another 5 in it, smoking that endo. Sipping on Janet juice. All right.
Laid back.
With my mind on my money and my money on my mind. Handy Boats, thank you so very much for the super sticker. I'm going to be logging into Rockfin really quick just so that we can get those Rockfin chats in as well.
Jamie playing work today, man. It was a super stream. It was a super good stream. Great to have Savvy, JB here, Ron with us. We had full fun. I'm sure that CJ probably had to make a run.
Yeah, I gotta head out. I gotta figure out the dinner situation real quick.
Yeah, absolutely. You thanks for joining for so long today.
Yeah, thank you, Sabby.
Bye, guys.
Yeah. Bye, Sabby.
All right, Sabby. Take care.
So I'm getting into the Rockfin right now. We're going to read those as well. I'm sure there is a plethora of Rockfin super chat. I'm sorry.
You guys see how we can't win? You guys see how we can't win? Man, if we left the show, we didn't read super chat. People like, man, RB, you guys didn't read fucking super chats. Now that we getting criticized for reading all the super chats, we can't fucking win. Isn't that funny?
Yeah. So I'm ready and
reading all the super chats. Can't fucking win. Isn't that funny?
All right, so let me go in here. Present. I'm working for a living today. All right, so sorry, but I have to go to.
God damn.
Hang on. I have to go to the ones that are the tips on Rockfin first, because I want to make sure I get those priority, because I don't want people to spend their money and it not get called. Says Roger Meadow says, Nick, have you been able to get in contact with KC10? I think KC tenants. I would love for you to start and convince them to start a CBI to enshrine into Missouri Constitution the outline of private equity from owning housing. Also, SAB.
I agree to sorry, JB, but I agree. Being KC10 agreed to an interview time a few times. It's very hard to nail down because they're busy as hell. I'm like, nigga, y'all keep working. It's cool. We do an interview show one time, but I had a great conversation with their coordinating director. I know a few of them. It's been a while. And I need to show up to an event recently. It's been because I've been doing my own thing with RB and KC. I actually would love to hook up with KC10s one day. Now that I got RB and KC up and running. But it's been a few weeks. It's been a while since I hook up with them. But it's really hard to get on my show because they working class, they proletariat, they take a lot of volunteer time. They're the real deal. So I'd rather them to just stay in the streets. They don't have to show. They don't have to come on my show. I don't give you guys just keep working, bro. That's all. Mm-hmm. That's all I want from you guys. I'm a big support for KC10. Giant support. And they know who we are. They one of them said they like our channel, but it's hard to get them to nail down on the time. But sorry, go ahead, JB.
Yeah. So continuing on, it says also SAB, call Cynthia and JB, pass her contact info to Nick to interview her since he is the F the police guy. All right. That was a lot. Universal Earthling. Thank you so very much. I'll just read one from Universal Earthling, and Gene Whitworth says, I think the major problem with contemporary focus on white supremacy is that the establishment can and often does weaponize racial identity politics. Gene Worth says, because anytime you make any decision based on race, it's racist. See, when you say the Black community, regardless of how well-meaning you are, it's a racial division. It only helps the dividers. Absolutely not, because race equals class. And I think that's something that you really need to get through into your head, because race equals class. And we've made that
White America really don't understand how much they don't get race. They really don't. They really don't. And I don't personally have the expectation that they're gonna get it all the way. I just don't have that. Just in the same way, I don't have the expectation that a female is gonna understand exactly a male point of view. You can explain as much as you want. You understand we are in such a unique position where our race and class are intertwined, are almost one and the same. That's almost different than every other sort of subset. So no one else is gonna get that as an automatic understanding. That is just not going to happen. I'm just gonna stop having that expectation. But go. It looks like you were gonna say something, Nick.
Yeah,
you leaned in.
I think we threw all the super chats and everything. There was a marathon. I got hit out.
This is a great.
But it was a good show. It was great to have all the fans back together. A lot of great discussion back and forth. So CJ, you guys have anything you want to shout out?
I'll do some announcements while I'm gonna shout out some fundraiser and everything. So go ahead, Nick. I'm just gonna shout out a couple of fundraisers, and then I'll let you guys shout out a fundraiser. So turns out the reason I'm having internet issues is not just my internet, my laptop. I bought this laptop. I bought it used. It was already 7 years old when I bought it, so it looks like it's fucking. It's clunking out, right? It's clunking out right now. So I was on customer service trying to figure out what the hell's going on with my internet. So I already have a fundraiser up. So this is a fundraiser. I'm not trying to get no crazy expensive laptop, so I only have it at $1,200. So I will be making a graphic and send that out. So I mean, there's no way I'm gonna be able to get a laptop.
I might know somebody. I know a couple of people who deal with computers and stuff like that. Like one of my comrades just donated like 7 desktops, and he refurbished laptops and desktops all the time. I'm pretty sure he probably could just throw you a couple. So I can check and call around.
We can talk offline on that. I'm still having the fundraiser just because I need to get a good one. I need to get a new laptop, because if this is what I'm doing as my thing, I need to make sure I'm able to access that. And to be honest with you, ever since I moved here, the internet has been spotty. Like even when I'm with,
yeah, I did notice
when I'm, yeah, like it's just today has been its worst, and it's not a coincidence. This is one of our largest streams. That's why I said, nah, I don't believe that. FBI is somewhere watching shit. Something's going on here for it to be at this level. But the laptop is its biggest contributor. It's just too old for the speed and everything I'm trying to do. It doesn't have enough. So if you are able to contribute, please do. I'll throw up the GoFundMe link, and then if you can. Also, thank you to the new member that just joined on Patreon. Looks like we got American Autopsy just became a new Patreon member, and Rentaro just became a new Patreon member. So we got 2 new today. Join our Patreon, scrolling at the bottom. I'll pass it back to you, JB, to close out, or Rome if you have anything else. Oh, shout out your fundraiser, actually, before you head out. Shout out all your fundraisers and everything.
I'm working on too many things. I'm still doing the library. I got the garden. I'm working on building beds for the garden right now, and we're gonna try to get that beautified before the winter hits. So you can contribute to the garden. If you don't want to contribute to the garden, you can contribute to the library. We still need lots of things. We're still going through plumbing issues. We're going through a lot of issues with the real nitty-gritty stuff before I can even let people in. Like, you know, we need toilets and stuff like that. Got to connect the pipes. So we're going to need funding for that. If you want to, if you don't want to give money to a library, if you don't want people reading books and having, you know, having a way to get banned books, you can give to our clinic. We're going to be opening up in Boston in 2 months, November. I will say middle November, late November. Me and Sabi will be introducing a tent clinic. It's really going to be, I call it a clinic, but it's more like needle exchange, condoms, antibiotics. It's a clinic for the people. You know, from the people. We doing what we can. I can't sit here and say I can give you a HIV test or some shit like that, but we're gonna do what we can to try to help these communities who are going through the worst of the worst right now, who are battling with addiction, that's battling against poverty and homelessness. So that's what my 3 things I'm focusing on as of right now.
And so just to let you guys know, we did the fundraiser for the Orlando chapter of Revolutionary Blackout Network. It's a mutual aid chapter that we had done. We reached our goal already, and so that was great. But if we just let you guys know, and you know, we actually did this earlier as well.
Congratulations.
Just to let you guys know, we will be doing our action on the 23rd of September, which is a Saturday here in Orlando. So if you're in Central Florida and you would like to join us, then I will be discussing that more on my channel as well as RBN in the coming week, and so that we can get together and get these care packages out to the homeless, because this is very important. And so we'll be doing that plus more, more parts regarding doing what we can for the people within our communities as well. Also, the GoFundMe link to, I think that's RBN GoFundMe link is down below if you guys can get that as well. And also, if you guys have not already, we also do fundraising for our graphics designer, Aaron. So if you guys have not, you guys can go and go to either $ Revolutionary Blackout, or you guys can go to Revolutionary Mutual Aid Forever. So if you guys
don't forget our Substack, because that's just as important as the Patreon. If you guys want to see things early, you want to be updated, seeing how our voices is oppressed, as we get shot down. Sometimes people, I didn't even know you guys were live. You can go to our Substack, subscribe, and you will have the information more likely before me what we're doing. But subscribe to our Substack, because that is that is a critical point. That is something that we actually need within our community, and make sure that we stay on top of these things. Make sure that you guys are informed as much as where RBN is moving and the next steps that we are taking.
Mm-hmm. Got a super chat that we need to read. Bob TV says, good segment. You guys are so intelligent. I would have given more, but capitalism, and I am on my way home from Florida. JB visiting moms. Keep up the good work. Thank you so very much.
That's Bob TV. Oh, what's good, boy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good to see
you.
you.
He's the guy that did that Peter Dow video that I play sometimes. That's Rob. His name is Rob, but he calls it Bob TV. And that's the CJ fundraiser, the GoFundMe. I just don't make sure you know which one it was. The one I had up was for my equipment fundraiser. I just don't want to mix them up. So make sure you're sending it to the library. If you want to send it to the library, send it to the Orlando one if you want to send it there. But this is the CJ equipment. Just got to get a new laptop. This mic too. I'm not gonna get the mic, but this mic, like the cord is all shorted, and you know how people who need money do. You make shit,
everybody
like
always
you
be
tie
complaining.
stuff on and you like prop it up and you do it. So, but I can't go any more without another laptop.
Motherfuckers be like,
CJ,
your mic is hot. Your mic is hot. I'd be like, the motherfucker cheap.
Yeah. That mic is just messed up. That's why it is what it is, man. That's just what it is. Yep. But yeah, all right. I'll pass it back to you, JB, for the close or Rome, if you had anything else.
Oh, go watch Death to America. If you watched it, watch it again. If you love it, propaganda.
Love it again.
Put it in there. Like, go to your mother's phone and put it in her recommendations. You know what I'm saying? Say, oh, this is Fox News, and screen your fucking phone to the television. Propagandize your loved ones. Propagandize your elders. And watch Death to America. You guys are going to love it. And thank you to the ones who supported it. We're going to be in Boston also doing another premiere for the film. So if you're out in Boston, I'm going to be out there in November. I'm going to throw a fundraiser up probably today or tomorrow for the people. And we're going to be out there in Boston. We're going to do another premiere for the movie for the people of Boston. And then we're going to open up our clinic for the people that's down in Boston.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So thank you so very much for that. I actually have a video that I'm going to close out the show with so that, it really solidifies what we are going through as far as collectively, so that people will really have a scope of exactly what we're going through. But I just want to thank everybody for coming in. With that, we're going to close out this video. I think CJ will approve of this video. Because that's what I look for. I look for CJ's approval. I will approved are upon me. So
all right, y'all. I'm about to dip out, man. Y'all take care.
All right, guys. All right. So this is talking about how we are in actually a silent depression, and this is why it is important to support independent media so we can make people aware, and also do mutual aid, do what you can for your community, because that is how we save ourselves. We save us. All right. Any last words, CJ? Oh, he went out. Okay. All right. Take care, everybody. Have a wonderful night.
We are not entering a recession. We are currently in the greatest depression in American history. It's random facts inside my brain where basic life skills are supposed to be, and you're not going to want to miss this. In 1933, the United States was in their worst financial and economic disaster in history. You may know this as the Great Depression. 1933 was the worst year of the Great Depression, where 25% of Americans were unemployed, and those that were able to retain their jobs had to take a pay deduction of nearly half. Those that remained employed made an average of $4,200 a year, according to the IRS. So I don't know if you've ever used the Bureau of Statistics inflation calculator, but it's this nifty little tool that nerds like me that are into true crime and history and facts like to use to see how money has changed over time. So I went on over there and I plunked that on in, and $4,200 in 1933 would be the equivalent of $95,000 $95,000 today. So in this country's most perverse and destitute time, these citizens were making what would equate to $95,000 today. So what does that mean for you? Well, that means if you are not currently making six figures, you are doing worse than someone in the Great Depression. Subsequently, you would need to be making $150,000 to $200,000 a year to be on track with where the average American was prior to the start of the Great Depression. Now, I don't know about you, but I sure don't make six figures. I don't even think I know anybody that does. So we all know the Great Depression was this terrible time where people couldn't afford their houses and had to move in with their parents and downsize, consolidate, so on and so forth, similar to what's happening right now and today. So I was wondering what the cost of a house was in 1933 that the people could not afford their houses. So I did some research, and a new house in 1933 cost an average of $3,900, which was less than the $4,200 a year they were making after their wages were cut in half. The average house in America currently costs $436,800. The average middle-class American makes about $50,000. That would equate to 11% of the cost of the house with their entire yearly income. Keep in mind, many Americans are working 2 and 3 jobs to make that $50,000. So we are not in a recession. We are currently in the greatest depression in American history.